Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here. So
Good morning. Our first presenter of the conference will be from James Hesketh. He's the CEO and director of Viva Gold Corp, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol VAUCF and on the TSXV under the symbol VAU. And as a reminder for our virtual audience, you can submit questions for Jim in the box to the left of the slides. Welcome back, Jim.
All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Pleasure being here. Today we're going to talk about Viva Gold Corp. It's a company that we're really focused on moving our Tonopah Gold project through into feasibility study and permitting, and moving towards building a mining business in Nevada. So it's not quite an exploration story. It's a little more advanced from that. Cautionary notes, read them at your leisure. We'll move on. So the real concept here, what we're envisioning the Tonopah Gold Project as becoming is a project capable of producing 60 to 70,000 ounces of gold a year through open pit mining and heap leach gold recovery. Put that in context, that's a business that has a revenue of potential of greater than $100 million a year. So you don't need to be a huge mine in this business to have a really good outlook. Key things, we've got a very strong management team, and we'll talk about that. And it's Nevada. It's one of the best places in the world to actually mine. We're blessed with some of the most experienced and educated regulators in the business, and that makes life a lot simpler. So, key fundamentals on our project. It's located on the Walker Lane Gold Trend in western Nevada. We're approximately a half hour's drive south of the Kinross's Round Mountain Gold Mine. This is mining country. We've got an existing well-drilled, measured, and indicated resource, and we're doing infill drilling to further flesh out the entire resource position. We completed a PEA on this project. It's a bit dated now, but it was at $1,400 gold and had a decent rate of return. That gave us the incentive to keep on going with the project. Management team, quite a successful record. Myself, I've built about 8 mines in my career, and we've got a team of people that very unusual for a company our size. We've got a very strong and supportive institutional shareholder base, and we have some realistic development timelines. So going on to the capital structure here, about 60+% of the company is owned by 4 institutions right now. That's Dundee Corporation. They own 20% of the company. Rab Capital out of London owns about 18%. We have Myrmikan Gold Fund with about 9%, and Pointillist, which is a PE fund out of Austin, Texas. So typically when we go to finance, they very often come in on a pro rata basis. So that has made our life a little simpler. With that said, all of these institutions have their own due diligence teams, and we get a lot of questions. So, that's really been the name of the game for us. We do go to financing. We keep the financings relatively small. It's program based, but we've got great support in the market. In terms of our team, Chris Harold, he's our chairman. He was founder of the Denver Gold Group, and he's run a cash flow positive exploration company now for about 35 years. Very talented geologist. Myself, by background, I'm a mining engineer and mineral economist, and my forte has been taking advanced stage exploration projects and moving them into the next step, feasibility, permitting, to the construction phase. Andy Bolin, surprising director for a company our size. He was formerly director of operations for Barrick Gold North America. David Whittle, very strong CEO and CFO background in the junior mining sector. Ted Mahoney, I first met him. He was business development manager for Barrick Gold, chief geologist and business development manager. And, again, he was also chief geologist at Kinross's Round Mountain mine. So he's got intimate knowledge of local geology. Then Adrian Goldstone, he's the technical director for Dundee Corporation. So we've got a very professional team, really focused on the type of development work that we anticipate moving into here. Now, looking at our neighborhood, the Tonopah Gold Project, it's the Blue Star. It's exactly a half hour's drive south of the Kinross mine. We're 20 minutes drive from the town of Tonopah. So great location. Just south of us, Centerra Gold acquired the Goldfield District. That acquisition, $206 million, was about $177 per resource ounce, measured, indicated, and inferred, for a fully permitted project ready to go. And Anglo Gold, just south of that, acquired Core's Sterling mine asset, and they also acquired Corvus Gold for roughly $165 and $170 per ounce. Again, advanced stage project. Sterling was a former operating mine with permits. And then Augusta Gold acquired the Reward project. All of these were in 2021-22. They acquired that for $100 an ounce. That was a small project, about 380,000 ounces of reserve, fully permitted. That's a project that I permitted and sold to Waterton Global, who sold it to Augusta. But the point of that discussion is that the value range for comps in the neighborhood of permitted projects is between $100 and $175 per ounce. We're currently trading at $15 an ounce. So by taking the project through feasibility, permitting, the real value proposition for Viva here is the potential to unlock tremendous value for our shareholders. So that's really the name of the game here. It's the second half of the Lassonde curve. You want to look at it that way. Now, since we picked this project up in 2017, we've been consistently growing the resource. Our last resource declaration was in January of 2022. At that time, we had 600,000 ounces of measured and indicated and inferred, 400,000 of measured and indicated. So 2/3 of our resource 2 years ago was measured and indicated already. Since then, we've drilled an additional 50 holes. And, part of that, we just announced a couple weeks ago the last 10 of those with some pretty spectacular results. I'll cover that in a minute. The resource here, very colorful slide, but you have two rock types. You've got an underlying very old rock, an Ordovician argillite, Mesozoic, overlain by very young volcanics. And the gold mineralization tends to follow the contact between those two lithologies. And this is a long section that we're showing, but what we're seeing here is the deposit so far is about 1.4 kilometers long. And gold here is controlled by both lithology and structure. There's a lot of structure here. And where we do get cross-cutting structures across the favorable lithology, we tend to get high-grade zones, and that's in the red. And throughout the mine life on this project, you will get high grades showing up. It's not just one zone of high grade, multiple zones from east to west. So this next slide is this is through the original discovery zone. The red in this picture has already been drilled to measured level. My predecessor company that I acquired the asset from took great delight in drilling high-grade holes and putting out press releases. They drilled the bejesus out of this zone. But to our benefit, the yellow is the $1,650 pit shell. Oh, you see we've got both low-grade mineralization in the blue, mid-grade, as well as high-grade. This is a bimodal system. There's two different grade populations here. So we do see a lot of potential. Now, our most recent drilling, here's some results. 24, we drilled, it was only a 10-hole program, but we hit hard on 6 out of the 10, including 21 meters at 5.1 grams, starting at 55 meters deep, 18 meters at 4.4 grams, starting at 40 meters deep, 90 meters at 2 grams, starting at 80 meters deep. So you can see we get these very high grade zones near surface. But when we do when we've started doing pit analysis on this, you get a lot of shallow, high grade starter pits that pop early. So what that means is that the potential on this project is that very short payback, because you get a lot of your high grades up front instead of at the end of the mine life. And that's really an important aspect in mine engineering. Mine the good stuff first, save the bad stuff for last. That's mining 101. I'll catch you in a minute. Okay, these are the some of the drill holes that we've drilled in the last 3 years. I didn't put all the drill holes in the section on, but you can see that there's a lot of high grade, and it's fairly, you get a lot of continuous zones here. And that's going to be key for this mine plan as we move forward. The PEA, like I said, this is a bit dated now. Realistically, this was 2001 data. And we had about half of our current resource in hand at the time. So we've grown the resource quite a bit since then, but we had some very strong economics on the sensitivity at $2,000 gold, 67% IRR. And that's that high grade showing up early. Payback, 2-year sort of time ranges. Payback's my favorite measure because that's when you've got your backside covered on your investment. You know, looking at the metallurgy on this project, um, this deposit is well oxidized. It it's a series of veins, breccias, and disseminated mineralization. We've got it all. We've done multiple generations of metallurgical test work. That includes work completed by Kennecott Minerals, who was the original discoverer, Newmont Gold, and Midway Gold, and ourselves. So what we see in the column leach is that we can get about 71% average recovery in heap leach with 3-stage crush. Or if we go to, on the high grade material, if we go to a CIL leach, we can get 92 to 94% gold recovery. That's by putting in an extra grind step to reduce the size of the rock to about 75 microns, 225 mesh. That would be a coarse flour consistency. But we do see a lot of good metallurgical recovery potential. And, one of the aspects of this project is we're about a half hour's drive south of what may be a very hungry mill at Round Mountain. They've been running out of mineralization there, and they're now having an underground decline in place. So there's a potential that we may be able to transport ore for mill feed there. That's something we're looking at, and or looking at our own CIL circuit. If you look at this deposit with a 1 gram cutoff grade, that leaves 20% of the 20% of the tons are above 1 gram, but those 20% contain half the gold in the deposit. So if we can get 20% higher gold recovery on that 50%, that's a material improvement to the project over straight heap leach. So that's an opportunity for us. In terms of looking at the infrastructure here, the road in the background is going to the right, is the road that runs right up to Round Mountain. That's State Highway 371. So we've got paved road access directly to the site. We can actually get a FedEx delivery to a drill rig on this site. So it's been very handy for getting parts. We've got a town of Tonopah, which is right on the other side of the range, about 20 minutes drive away. Their water utility is about 3 miles up the road coming into the picture. And that water utility, it's a commercial water utility. Their water rights date back into the 1800s from when they started issuing water rights. And, they've got a huge excess of right. So we've had discussions with the town, and the real benefit to us, as well as the town, is we could become their largest customer. So it's a win-win. The 14-inch water pipeline running right over our claims. In addition to that, there's a Nevada Energy 15 kilovolt power line that follows the pipeline, and that can be upgraded to 25 kilovolt under with just changing the insulators out. The main substation's in the town of Tonopah, actually. So we've got power, water, and paved highway access. Now, back in 2003, Newmont completed the first EA on this project. And from that, they also completed the cultural resource studies. And then from that, they produced a plan of operations for exploration. Now, since then, we've been doing baseline study work. We've completed our wildlife studies. That's been accepted by the BLM now. We've completed quarterly water sampling for over 3 years. We've been doing seep and spring studies. We've been doing our geochemical characterization studies are complete. Those took 86 weeks to complete the study work. So one of the things people say often is, isn't the U.S. a long permitting period? Well, yes, it is if you don't start it early. And what we've been doing is knocking off the long lead time items ahead of time. So that's really the key. We've been doing hydraulic pump testing on the aquifers. So it's, you know, that's the key to permitting in the US. Start early, produce the scientific work that the government can use for permit application. So, you know, bottom line, what we've been doing, we just completed a 1,500 meter drill program. We're planning another 3,000 meter drill program. That'll all go into an upgraded resource model later this year, some additional metallurgical study, continue on with the baseline study work. And our real goal is to commence pre-feasibility study later this year and use that to initiate the EIS permitting process. That could lead us to a construction decision by late 2025. So that's the kind of timeline we're pushing on here. It's a project that has a substantial amount of high grade that come out early, drive the payback. And while we won't have explored the entire project at that point, really it's better done from cash flow. But that's what we anticipate. So, you know, the premise here, shareholder value is generated by adding gold ounces and de-risking gold projects for ultimate mine development. That's the true value creation in our business. You can get lucky and do the original discovery. That'll give you a boost. But where you get the true boost in value is taking the project to the next step. You know, our focus here, increase the gold resource through drilling and de-risking the project through strong technical work. Anyway, that's Viva Gold in a nutshell here. Any questions?
All right, Jim, thank you very much. We're going to open up the floor for just a few questions right now. I think we have 1 or 2 minutes left. Anyone? Tom? All right.
You mentioned BLM. Your land is all BLM
Yeah,
property?
it's 100% BLM, which is fortunate. There's only one land group to deal with.
How much capital have you raised, and how much do you expect to raise in the next year or two? Thanks.
Well, fairly shortly here, I'll be going out for a raise, and I hope to raise somewhere in the 3 to 4 million range to take us into the pre-feasibility study, complete the infill drilling that we have planned.
How much did you raise previously?
Yeah, we've raised probably around 8 million since I've taken over the project.
All right, Jim, I think that's it.
Got another question
one more.
here.
Could you please give us some idea about the market cap table, the cap table, how many percent you own, how many percent inside?
Yeah, I own probably around 2% of the company right now, and I have a lot of stock options. So we've got, you know, the 4 institutions own about 60% of the company. So we've got a free market float of roughly 40%.
$1 million you just raised, what the term? Can you share with us?
I don't have a price deal at this point. I've got to negotiate with that a little bit.
All right, Jim, thank you very much for your presentation. If you would like to meet with Jim one-on-one, as John mentioned before, you can approach Lewis or Tom, and they will help schedule that. Thank you very much, Jim.
All right. Thank you.
Hello, welcome back. Our next presentation will be from Brian Lentz, Director and Chief Exploration Officer of Relevant Gold Corp., which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol RTGCF and on the TSXV under the symbol RGC. As a reminder to our virtual audience, you could submit questions for the presenter in the box to the left of the slides. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you very much. I am here subbing in for our CEO, Rob, who had a last minute conflict. So if you see Rob Bergman on any of the materials there, I'm the co-founder and business partner of Brian Lentz. So just want to make sure that there wasn't some confusion there. So happy to be here to take you through the Relevant Gold story, present our company to you. Briefly, myself, a little bit of who I am and my experience. So I built a number of profitable businesses on the private side of the minerals industry. With Rob, our first company was or is a geological consulting firm and technical services group called Big Rock Exploration that's primarily serviced the major mining companies in North America, and so have a lot of experience there. And we took a new science concept to exploring for gold in Wyoming. So Relevant Gold is a early stage junior gold explorer, and we're in Wyoming. So I'll take you through the story of why Wyoming and why we're really excited to be exploring there. First, cautionary statement: we are a high risk, early stage industry and project. We're on the earliest stage of the mining life cycle project, and we do everything that we can through our solid technical work and our team to make sure we can mitigate risks at every step of the process. But there are obviously forward-looking statements here as we get into things. At Relevant Gold, we have a really strong value proposition. We are really proud of the team of value creators, proven value creators, from the boardroom down to the boots on the ground. So we really have an advantage with our deep human capital infrastructure through the consulting business side, as well as through the experience of our board and management team. And we are focused on unlocking a new belt scale district with Abitibi potential in Wyoming, and I'll get into that. That's kind of the science, the new science. We have a very large land position. We have multiple permitted drill targets. We've got 2 in hand. We're working on a 3rd. We have high grade gold at surface with assays up to 168 grams per ton gold. And we have high grade gold at depth that we intersected, highlighted by 83.8 grams per ton over 1 meter within a larger 3 meter mineralized shear zone at our Golden Buffalo project. And that was the first ever drill holes drilled at Golden Buffalo. So we're really excited to get back out there and continue to explore. This past summer, we were out drilling at our Lewiston project where at a new target, again, never been drilled. We drilled 11 holes, 10 of which intersected oxide gold, and really indicating that there's a lot more opportunity at depth. We have over 50 kilometers of prospective Abitibi-style orogenic shear zone across our 5 projects, and really we've built a pipeline of discovery opportunities in Wyoming, which is very mining friendly in the U.S. We like to think it's second to Nevada, like our previous speaker had illustrated how friendly Nevada is. Wyoming really is really emerging as a very, very friendly district. And essentially, we're building a company with exploration assets and a story that really could live on for a very, very long time. Taking a quick look at our corporate structure, Rob and I co-founded the company. We are the largest shareholders. We continue to invest at every round of financing, and we have some strong support. Rob McEwen has a 6.4%. New Gold has a 9.9%. We have a really unique and large chunk of high net worth individuals that have backed, some of whom have backed Rob and I on the private side, and they continue to back us under this venture. So we're really proud of our shareholder base. We have about 64 million shares out. We have about a 19 million market cap. So taking a look at that team, I said we're really proud of the team that we've built. So starting with the board, we've got Dr. Peter McGaugh, who's the co-founder of Mag Silver. If you follow Mag Silver or you follow Peter, you may have noticed that he recently announced his retirement from the administrative duties at Mag. And I just wanted to bring that up because he is not by any means retiring from his focus in Relevant Gold, and he's actually is giving him more capacity to focus on the rocks and the geology, which is really his area of expertise. He has made a number of really high value discoveries in our industry, and we're really proud to have him on our board and to have his leadership and experience. As well as Sarah Weber. Sarah Weber is a powerhouse out of Vancouver. She's incredible. She is currently the CEO of C3 Alliance Corp. They specialize in ESG, Indigenous relations, permitting, and she's also a director for Snowline Gold. And then Ron Parrott. Ron has led the discovery of many millions of ounces of gold in Nevada and was just recently finished up his term as president of the SME organization. So some of you may know Ron, but he has an incredible career. And then Rob and I round out the board. Our technical team really are some of the shining stars of our team. Dr. Dean Peterson did his PhD in the Abitibi Gold Belts and really has had a great career in early stage through development projects, specifically in Archean gold systems, which is what we're looking at in Wyoming. Tom Campbell was the head exploration geologist for Homestake at the Homestake mine, and then later Barrick, and spent a lot of his career at Hemlo as well up in Canada. And then Dr. Chamberlain is out of the University of Wyoming. He's actually one of the published authors, extensively published authors of the new Abitibi thesis and the tectonic reconstruction of why of the new Abitibi thesis, which I will get into here. So what we're looking for are orogenic gold systems. Orogenic gold deposits account for approximately 1/3 of the world's gold production, and they essentially need three simple things. Well, I shouldn't say them. They need three things to form, and I break it down simply here because I think it's important to understand what we're looking for and how they form. So we need one, a metallogenic fluid deep in the earth, so that's enriched in gold. We need a pathway to get that gold up to the surface where it can find these secondary structures, which are traps and favorable host rocks, and form large high-grade deposits. And that's essentially what the orogenic gold system is, and why it's really important to understand kind of how they form, so we know what to look for when we are exploring for them. An opportunity of scale. I've said Abitibi a few times, and I've said Wyoming a few times. Those are two totally different places. So why am I saying that? It's important to understand the orogenic gold systems in Canada because we believe we have similar systems in Wyoming. So looking at the ones in Canada, we see in our figure here these east-west kind of gray gold lines on the figure. Those are our Archean belts. And so when we think of that those three criteria that you need for orogenic systems, those east-west belts, those are the pathways for gold. All those clusters of dots are major gold deposits and gold mines. And so we could see the clustering of points related to those east-west structures. So, and I'm not sure if this image will animate or not, but essentially the Wyoming province was attached to the Superior province and the Abitibi gold belts at that magical 2.6 to 2.7 billion year old time frame when the structural deformation and the gold endowment came into the system, and then it later rifted apart. And it looks like I'm missing my slide, but it later rifted apart to where it presently resides today. So we went to Wyoming and said, well, if it was part of the Abitibi gold belts, there should be some massive exploration opportunities to uncover in Wyoming. So Wyoming, we truly believe is the unexplored extension of the Abitibi. We'll get into some of our projects and assets here. Yeah, so what we're seeing here in this figure, the green here, this is a figure from the literature from one of Dr. Chamberlain's publications. This is the Wyoming province, and we have established two large-scale camps that we've acquired along the Oregon Trail structural belt, which has been dated at that 2.65 billion year old tectonism age, which again, that key gold endowment age. We'll get into each one of these camps a little bit. I don't have as much of the technicals in my talk, but I'm happy to dive into that as people would like. So when we look at an opportunity of scale, we truly have district scale. We like to define what we mean by that. So when we take a look at our figure of the Abitibi, and then we take the footprint of our South Pass camp, we can see it has the footprint to host a large amount of deposits. It has the size and scale, and when we compare that to a similar size in the Abitibi, you could see that cluster of dots around the Canadian Malarctic area. We have the same age and similar rocks as the Canadian Malarctic area in the Abitibi. So you can see a lot of area for potential in our South Pass camp. So when we say district scale, we truly mean district scale as we look at our analog to the Abitibi. Looking at just a glance of our portfolio, so across our 2 camps, we have our 5 district scale projects. Our flagship project at Golden Buffalo, which I highlighted at the beginning, we had the high grade gold at surface, high grade gold in the drill bit, and we've really only started to scratch the surface there with our first ever drilling in 2022. We drilled a 3,500 meter program with over half of the holes returning anomalous gold mineralization, which is very significant because we're looking in areas that have never been drilled, and these rocks essentially are barren of gold. So when you start to actually find gold in these systems, and you can see how large these systems are at Golden Buffalo, we've proven out now well over a kilometer worth of strike length of the Golden Buffalo shear zone. And so we're really excited to go back in and continue to explore at Golden Buffalo because we've illustrated it is truly shear zone hosted. It's a very large structure, and it has very high grade mineralization. At Lewiston, this was one of the historic mining districts. There's a lot of historic mining in Wyoming, and Lewiston is known for his high grade historic mines. Generally, kind of petered out in the early 1900s, like a lot of places in the western U.S., but very rich reported grades there. A lot of these mines could only go down 100 feet or so until they hit water, and they didn't have any way to deal with that, and so they went on to the next kind of high grade chute and mined that down to the water table. So the Lewiston district is about a 10-kilometer structural corridor that has quite a number of high grade historic mines. We drilled one of our targets there. We have 6 targets at Lewiston. We drilled our first one called our Heavy Hand last year, and 10 of our 11 holes intersected oxide gold mineralization, which we were a little bit surprised that we could barely get out of the oxide. But we sent our last hole number 11, a little bit deeper, and did get into the fresh sulfide mineralization. So we're excited to get back out there because all signs indicate we need to drill deeper. Again, that project had never been drilled before. A very high grade gold on surface, multi-ounce in rock chips, and so we're looking forward to getting back out there and continuing our drilling campaign. Shield Carissa is early stage. We've just started to do our groundwork there. We have 3 very big targets there within a large 3-kilometer structural corridor adjacent to the most prolific historic mine in the South Pass camp. The Carissa mine produced about 200,000 ounces of gold. That's on record. Back then they didn't necessarily report all the gold that they found, so we only know what was reported. But very, very prolific grades that we've gotten at surface. High grade gold at over 18 grams, and high grade silver there as well, which was a little bit of a surprise, but not uncommon for orogenic systems. And then Bradley Peak is our other camp area. That is a bit different geologically. It has more of a classic greenstone rock assemblage that we have there, and returned some real high grade results from just our initial work program last year. and we did get some airborne geophysics done, which really highlights the Bradley Peak Camp as a district scales, very significant fold structure that clearly lights up in the data. So we are headed back out there first thing this summer to continue to advance that project to drilling. So as I illustrated it, going through our project portfolio, we really take a systematic approach. We are a very technically driven group that has a lot of experience, especially in our leadership with Peter McGaw, Ron Parrott, and Sarah, who have taken numerous projects from concept through the systematic exploration and into discovery and development phases. So we've been systematically exploring, and this just kind of shows where we are on the Lassonde curve. We're earliest stage in the mining life cycle with a pipeline of asset opportunities that we've built into the company. At Relevant, we've continued through that systematic exploration. We've really checked all of the boxes that when you're looking for orogenic systems, you have your first and second order criteria that you want to make sure to find to continue to either explore, provide justification to continue to explore there, or move on to a place where drill it or kill it type of situation, right? So we want to make sure that when we're exploring, we've checked all the major boxes, and that's what we continue to do with our systematic exploration. And I will also just wanted to highlight the permitting component here in Wyoming is very navigable pathway. We've had a lot of support. We currently have 2 drilling permits, third on the way. Some of you may have noticed, but recently the state of Wyoming granted U.S. Gold Corp a permit to mine. So they've actually just recently permitted a modern gold mine in Wyoming, proving that it can be done. So we're really excited for Wyoming in general, and they are excited for us. And we're seeing a lot of support from the state of Wyoming. I mentioned that airborne geophysics, that was actually funded by the state of Wyoming. So they put up over $2 million and partnered with the USGS to fly an airborne geophysical survey over central Wyoming. We helped to write a letter of support for them to secure that funding, and they agreed to include our camp areas as a part of that survey. So really demonstrating that that support, that open for business, and really wanting to attract more exploration and mining in the state. I touched on a lot of this in the portfolio summary, but this is just looking at some of the work we did last year more specifically. The larger box area that you can see here in the aerial map, that was the area that was flown with the regional airborne geophysics, and that data just came out in quarter 1 of this year. At Lewiston, we had our drilling last year where we, I had said 10 of our 11 holes intersected oxide gold mineralization. We also intersected some very significant structures. We have some of these structures, shear zones are over 30 meters in width. We knew a little bit of what was at surface. We proved through the drill bit that there is much more going on there structurally, as well as these wide panels of oxide gold mineralization, and just starting to get into the fresh sulfide at about that 200-meter depth. And so we are excited to continue to explore deeper, as that's where the data is telling us to go. I'm not going to go read through all of this here, but this just shows our news flow over the past year, or last year and the first quarter of this year. So steady news flow, but you'll notice that we really only put out material news. So all of the news that we put out is really results driven. So looking ahead to this season, we're very excited to get back out into the field, get our boots on the ground. heading back out to Wyoming here for a busy 2024 season. We're really looking to define the gold potential at Lewiston with geophysics and some of that follow-up drilling from our results last year. We really believe that the opportunity is deeper at Heavy Hand, and some additional geophysics should help to guide us at how deep and where to put our next drill holes. So we're continuing to refine our targets there, as well as getting out to Bradley Peak. Bradley Peak is kind of the rising star in our portfolio with the geophysical results and some of our mapping and sampling results with our high grade gold and copper at that asset. We're going to get out and do a bunch of that systematic exploration work this year so we can have some drill targets to start permitting and fast track that to drilling. So why invest in Relevant Gold? We have a very strong share base, as I illustrated. We're really proud of our shareholder base and the support that we have from folks like New Gold, Rob McEwen, who built a career in these types of systems, a fabulous career. And so I think that is something that we're just really proud of, that he sees the opportunity at Relevant Gold and believes in the team as well. We are working with the new Abitibi thesis. That's a belt scale concept. We've built a pipeline of discovery opportunities. So really, providing a upside multiplier of potential at the company. First mover advantage, in Wyoming, we started working there before a lot of others kind of came to town. We're obviously not the first ones and definitely not the only ones. But we've recently seen, a lot of other attention in Wyoming, which is great. But we've been there for a while. We've already started to build our assets and acquire the ground that we felt was the most prospective. Grade is king. We're looking for orogenic systems. These are high grade. These are major deposits that we're going after. And so, high grade is really one of the key components to finding a mine that can exist in good times and tough times. And we are, again, proud of our team. We have a proven team of value creators with Peter McGaw and with Ron. So from the boardroom to the boots on the ground, we like to say, we really have the experience in the team to continue to move this forward. Just a little quote here from Peter, as well as from Brian London, who wrote us up in his April Gold newsletter issue, about the opportunity at Relevant Gold. I'm not going to read the quotes, but I encourage you to follow us or reach out to me. I'm happy to provide any of that information. We recently did a webinar with Peter where we went into a lot of detail about the geophysics, about the opportunity at Relevant Gold. So I'd be happy to pass that along to folks as well. And with that, I think I'm wrapping it up here right down to the wire. I say, join us for the next big discovery in Wyoming.
Brian, thank you very much for your time. We are out of time, but if you have any questions for Brian, you are welcome to request a one-on-one meeting with Tom and or Lewis for Brian. Brian, thank you very much.
Hello. Our next presentation is from Mike Allen. He's the President, Chief Executive Officer, and Director of Strike Point Gold, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol STKXF and on the TSXV under the symbol SKP. And as a reminder to our virtual audience, you can submit questions for Mike in the box to the left of the slides. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. I do have hard copies of the presentation and one-pagers for people in the audience here, and then also on our website, creatively strikepointgold.com. You can find a copy or a similar presentation to what I'm going to speak to right now. Cautionary statements, obviously read that at your leisure. I'm going to be making forward-looking statements here. Talk a little bit about myself and the company and what I like to do to protect the company and shareholders. This is a little bit of a combination of my history and how I like to run a company. I put in three values or three pillars into the company: a backstop of value. In this particular case, this is represented by our high-grade silver assets that we have in BC. The experienced management team, which includes myself. I've got about 15 years experience in Nevada. I've also got a great CFO and a great team around me, a great board. And the great management team can extract the most value for shareholders in any given situation. Then the third pillar, which I'm going to focus a lot on today, is the exploration upside, the sizzle that really drives shareholder value and value creation. We're an early stage exploration company. The BC properties are a bit more advanced. There is a historic resource there. But what our flagship asset is the Cooperite Gold Project in Nevada. It's an early stage exploration project within Nevada's Walker Lane. And it's at the interesting part of the Lassonde Curve. It is pre-discovery, where we can really start to unlock value within the company. So why did we go to the Walker Lane? Couple of reasons. The management expertise. I've worked in this part of the world. I actually for about 15 years, I've acquired and sold different assets successfully, made successful returns for investors. Also, this is as Jim alluded to earlier, this is a hotbed of M&A activity in recent years, partially kicked off by myself. I used to run a company called Northern Empire, and we acquired the Sterling asset. It was a forgotten asset in the Walker Lane. We bought that asset out of a distressed producer for $10 million cash. 16 months later, we sold the company for $120 million. It's the all-time high for share price. It was a great swan song. It was a great, quick transaction. We could have done potentially a lot more for the company and the asset, gone longer and through various parts of the Lassonde Curve, but we were businessmen. It was an offer at the all-time high of the share price. Take it and get out. Get crystallized value for shareholders and get out. Since then, that asset has been sold. We sold to Coeur Mining. They flipped it to AngloGold for just over $200 million, and they've consolidated the district around Beatty. And I think that they're on the verge of making a discovery of that'll. They've put 16 million ounces on the board. They're probably going to take that to a 40 million ounce district. Why we liked the Cooperite project is it is similar to the AngloGold discovery. We'll get a little bit into it. It's the next Caldera up. It's about 75 kilometers to the north, but we're in the shadows of giants. So to the south of us, there's a new discovery about 16 million ounces. To the north of us, Centerra is working on about a 3 million ounce resource, and to the north of them is the Kinross Round Mountain mine, which is about 28 million ounces produced. So we are in the shadow of giants, and there's a lot of interesting things happening in this part of the world. little bit of geology. What's driving these deposits in the Walker Lane? They're generally caldera margins. A caldera is an ancient volcano. If you can imagine Mount St. Helens on a much larger scale, the top blows off and you get a ring structure. So these structures in the Walker Lane have proven to be fruitful in terms of their golden endowment. As I said, to the south of us, the Rainier Mesa caldera, that's got a 16 million ounce resource that has been discovered in the last 5 years in Nevada. To the north of us is the Goldfield caldera. That's got about a 4 million ounce resource that is being developed by Centerra right now. And there's one more further to the north of us, the Round Mountain caldera, and that's got a 28 million ounce production history on it. We're the one in the middle. Oddly, the southern two calderas had never been drilled, and that's a little quirk of history that I'll talk about later. We acquired this project shortly after I took over as CEO. We acquired it in January of 2023. We acquired it because it looked an awful lot like the Silicon discovery. Caldera margin, essentially blind to gold at surface. You can have a discussion with the Anglo Gold geologists. They've done thousands of rocks and soil samples across their new discovery. There is no gold at surface. Similarly, at our project, the Cuprite, there's not a lot of gold at surface. You can get anomalous gold in rock samples, so we're slightly better than Silicon that way. But what we're looking at is a steam heated alteration cell. These things are high up in the epithermal system, and what you have to do is essentially just go for it, do your work, do your geophysics, but eventually you just have to back up the rig and we're going to go drill. So I'll take you through what we did in terms of creating this, but it was a lookalike to Silicon that attracted us to this project. And this is a big swing. It's a project that's never been drilled. And Nevada is one of the number one mining, or one of the premier jurisdictions for mining in the world. And any company that is comfortable in mining is comfortable in Nevada. Discoveries there get premium ratings and premium returns for shareholders. That's why we're there. Not going to bore you too much into this, but in 2023 there wasn't much of a market. There wasn't much excitement going on, so we took the time and did the cheap work to take a drill concept to a drill target. We expanded the land package from about 10 square kilometers to 44 square kilometers. So it took it to about 17 square miles. It's a fairly significant package. You needed room to be able to move if you made a discovery. Think about layouts, think about where you're going to be putting your open pit, your waste rock piles, all those things. So we wanted to get a bit more flat space. We also did about 75 kilometers worth of soil sampling, and that gave us a very coherent anomaly. And where you're seeing it on the slide there, it's about 2.6 square kilometers where we have a mercury in soil anomaly. Mercury is a moves with gold, and so it's a proxy. Mercury is a bit more mobile, so it'll actually come up to surface where the gold will stay at depth. That's why we don't see the gold at surface. This area is a historic mercury and porcelain mining district. So that's actually similar to what is happening down at Silicon. In addition, if we wanted to go through all the elements, you'd see the ratio and how they behave relative to the soil anomaly. What it suggests to us is there's a buried body at depth that we're going to be drilling into. We followed that up, our soil work up with IP geophysics. We did 3 lines in our first phase. The resistivity, what that shows is hydrothermal activity. So the hatched areas here, it shows the 2 things: step down, and it also shows where we possibly introduce silicification, hydrothermal fluids into the system. And so that gave us a big structural corridor. We're swinging big here. It's about a 6 kilometer long structural corridor that we're working with on the property. So that was a good start. Chargeability is a proxy for metals. We got chargeability anomalies along those structures as well. So we were starting to see things and starting to get similarities to what Silicon was looking like to the south. Also did our own structural mapping. And to the north on the two dark lines on the north of the map, you start to see the step down structure stepping down to the east. We also saw east-west structure. So a little bit of structure is good. You need porosity and permeability to be able to drive hydrothermal fluids through. A little bit more is better. So we liked what we were seeing on the property, and it all started to create a coherent mass. This is where we were at the end of 2023. We had it took us 2 weeks to get our drill permits. So those are the holes that we were permitted. We had the structural mapping, the soil anomaly, and we asked ourselves one last question. We were concerned about the east-west structures, and sometimes what can happen in Nevada is you can get a big offset on those structures, and you can get a big step down. And we were concerned that well, we're going to be drilling 500 meters of overburden, and that's not really a good use of shareholder money. So let's do one more line of geophysics just to see if we can kill this before we go out there and start spending big dollars. What we saw was actually better than what we were hoping for. What this line showed us was that there was chargeability anomalies and more silicification close to surface. Our structures that we mapped at surface did not have big down drops on them. The bedrock was expected to be intercepted about 50 meters from surface. We see silicification, we see feeder structures, we see boiling horizons. This is one of those things where you just have to have faith in the geophysicist. These are the things that they can see, and we're like, okay, this is now, we've taken this from a drill concept to a drill target, and now we're ready to go. So we did a financing right around the time of PDAC. It was a 4-cent financing with a half warrant at 7 cents. Since that time, we've traded as high as 9. We're currently trading about 7 cents. Drill rig was mobilized, and we punched down 5 holes. The 5 holes there, we are happy with what we put into the bag. We have the rocks looked good. That's about all I can say. One of the best sayings I've ever heard is that God created gold and the devil sprinkled it around. So we're waiting for assay results, and we'll see what we get up to. But this is a big target, and there's a lot of interest in the area. There's a lot of companies that have looked at this target before, seen the similarities, seen the alteration, and weren't able to pull the trigger. A couple of interesting quirks of the history of this project. I am a Nevada guy. I've driven by this project dozens of times, and this is on the left-hand side of the map. There is the main highway between Las Vegas and Reno, so it's very easy to access. I've driven by it a dozen times and looked over at it, and you can see the alteration, and you say, well, you know, why don't we acquire that? Why don't we stake this? And you were never given a chance. The U.S. government had a moratorium on staking. Back in the day, the U.S. government had a project going called Yucca Mountain, and they were going to store nuclear waste underground in Nevada. And the train route to bring the nuclear waste in went through Cooperate. There's an old historic rail bed, and they were going to reactivate that and bring it in, and effectively you sterilize this area. That program also sterilized Silicon, the 13 million ounce discovery to the south of us. What happened since then, in about 2017, that moratorium came off. A group called Renaissance, now Origin, went out and staked Silicon. They flipped it to AngloGold. AngloGold made the discovery. Same group went out and they staked about 10 square kilometers, about the heart of our soil anomaly. And then they were able to flip it to us. They know my history in the area. They know that I have access to capital, and I've had a good history with the Origin folks, and we were able to do a deal on that. In terms of the share structure, StrikePoint is a mature company. We do have a fairly large float, 263.8 million shares outstanding. Options are out there. We're fairly cashed up. That's a bit of a stale number for that was March 31st in terms of our cash. Current cash is probably about $2 million Canadian. Market cap, grossly call it $20 million Canadian. Two largest shareholders, Eric Sprott and Pathfinder Asset Management. Pathfinder was an interesting meeting. They came in as part of our recent financing. They were the lead order that kicked it off. It was an interesting conversation. It was a bet on me. They had made a lot of money off of Northern Empire, and it essentially, Mike, you've got a good idea in Nevada? Yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. Okay, we're in for $1 million. Do you want to hear about it? No, it really doesn't matter. We like you. And so that was a shocking meeting. It was quite flattering, but this is what history does for you. They've had success, and they're willing to back me for another Nevada story. Another interesting factoid of StrikePoint is 7 of the 10 largest shareholders are management. I'm number 4 on the list. So I've put a lot of my own money into this. In our recent raise, management, and by management I'm talking myself, the CFO, and the IR guy, we took down 10% of the financing, so that we're starting to put our money into this and really get involved. We think that this project has got a lot of opportunity. There are big players in Nevada that are moving around. You're seeing just about every mining company in the world has perked up with the new discovery to the south of us. You're seeing that in terms of M&A, Antero going into the north, Anglo Gold taking up people to the south. The other usual Nevada suspects, the Newmonts, the Barricks, the Kinrosses, are all walking around looking at this asset and going, what are these guys going to do? Because it looks an awful lot like Silicon. So I think that if we get success out of our drill programs, even if we just get a sniff and prove that this is a large scale system that is gold bearing, you're going to see an interest in the majors and an interest in our stock. Speak a little bit about our Golden Triangle projects. These are high grade silver assets located just outside of Stewart. We don't actually have to do any work on them in the next little while. These claims are in good standing until 2030. So they're a backstop of value in the company, but they're not a burden on the company. One point in time during the silver squeeze, there was a very serious appreciation for these silver assets in the company, but they are tough to work and a bit remote. In terms of the management, obviously you've met me here today. Sean Kuhn is the executive chairman of the company. His day job is a company called Dolly Varden Silver, and he's working in the Golden Triangle. Sean's got a lot of connections to the capital markets and helps to finance the company. The other most active director is a gentleman by the name of Adrian Fleming, and Adrian and Sean were the ones that brought me in to run this company. Adrian has been a mentor of mine for 5 years now. We were up at Hope Bay when I was a kid. I was the youngest geologist on the project, but Adrian was also an influential director when I was running Northern Empire. What we're trying to do is StrikePoint is very similar to what we did in Northern Empire. Surface value for shareholders, make an exit, and really do the right things for shareholders. Try and pride ourselves in being businessmen running a mining company as opposed to anything else. It's about protecting shareholder value. So with that, the presentation is available on the website for the people online. It looks like I've got about 5 minutes minutes left for questions if there are any.
All right, Mike, we're actually going to start with a question from the online audience this time.
Okay.
So,
Okay. So, Mike, an investor is asking, what type of rocks did the drilling hit? Siebert Tough?
Somebody's read the 43-101 if they're asking that sort of question. We haven't been able to age date yet, but it is looking like it is Siebert Tough, and there's also a bit of Civet Cat. We bottomed the holes in the Ordovician sediments, but yes, there were the right host rocks. Siebert Tough in this area is a host for some of the mineralization. Notably to the north of us, there's a project called Hasbrook, where I used to be VPX, where the mineralization is hosted in the Siebert Tough. So yes.
You have a lot of option and want. So the price, how much and when expire? And also, are you going to looking for raise more money?
Lots of questions there. We do have the warrants were created as a result of our most recent financing. So those are all priced at 7 cents. Those are out there for 3 years. And then the options, Strike Point is a mature company. So there is a lot of what I'll call historic options. If you take the mathematical average of all the options that are out there, it's about 15 cents is the strike price of those. Yes, I'm sorry. I speak mostly in Canadian dollars. Sorry.
any other questions from?
Oh, I'm sorry. In terms of financings, we're going to see what the results of this program are, and then make a decision based on that. As I said, hopefully we get good results if we can get an appreciation in the price and accretive financing and start moving ourselves up the value chain. Then we'll be looking to do that. Right now, we have enough cash to get us ourselves into 2025.
When is your drilling program going to start? When we expect to see some results from this first go round?
So we started the program just after PDAC. It's actually, it is completed, and we're expecting to have our results out by the end of May. Imminent. Well,
The question was there's no holdup at this point with the asset labs.
yeah, I mean, there's always a holdup in the assay labs. At PDAC, they said that they would be able to turn them around in 2 weeks. I kind of laughed at when they said that to me. That was a salesman talking. We're looking at the traditional 6 to 8 weeks is where.
You mentioned that you have 43-101 a minute ago. You've already done a 43-101 on this property, or?
Yes, we do have a 43-101 on this property. This is the flagship asset for the company, so you need that 43-101. Yeah.
All right, Mike, looks like we have one more question from the online audience.
Okay.
So, Mike, how many meters was the 5 holes? He says the 10 was supposed to be 5,000 meters. That's the question.
Yep. No, it is a good question. The 5 holes were 3,106 meters. So we were, because of the structure of the company, we're very mindful of the budget, and so we cut it short based on that. One more hitch would have put us over budget, so we cut it off just to be able to preserve cash and not put the company into a bad situation. We drilled our deeper holes first, so over 600 meters a hole.
All right, Mike, thank you very much for your time. It was a great presentation. To everyone, we are going to take a 15-minute coffee break, so we'll be back here at 10:45 for our next presentation. Again, Mike, thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Our next presentation will be from Ralph Rushton, President, CEO, and Director of Aftermath Silver Limited, which trades on the OTCQX Best Market under the symbol AAGFF and the TSXV under the symbol AAG. As a reminder to our virtual audience, you can submit questions for the presenter in the box to the left of the slides. Welcome, Ralph.
Thank you very much. By way of introduction, I'm a geologist by training, but I've been working in the junior sector for about 20 years now, so I've become a jack of all trades and definitely a master of none. I've been on the road for about 2 weeks, so this badge is to remind me who I am. I'm getting a bit croaky after all the air conditioning on planes and hotels, so you'll have to forgive me if I cough and splutter a little bit. And thank you very much, the OTC, for inviting us here. We've had a very, very successful time on the OTC. We trade very well here, probably 500,000 shares a day at the moment on average. So we've been very happy with our relationship with these guys. So after all the talks about Nevada and Wyoming and gold, I'm going to shift the dial a little bit closer towards the critical metals side of things. And I'm going to go to South America. So we're going to jump down to Peru and Chile. We have 3 projects in the company, 2 silver projects in Chile, Challacoyo and Cachinal. I won't be discussing those, but I'll be happy to answer any questions about them later on one-on-ones. I'm going to focus instead on our main project, the Berenguela Silver Copper Manganese project in southern Peru. And you can see from that basket of metals there why I say it's shifting more towards the critical metals assets. The copper and manganese components, particularly important, both the critical metals for the EU and for the US. So we've been focusing very hard on this project over the last couple of years, and I think we're making very good progress with it. Share structure and performance. We've got about 225 million shares issued. Largest shareholder would be Eric Sprott. We trade about 1 million shares a day currently, our 30-day trading average between the TSX Venture and the OTC. So we're very liquid, and I think that's a testament to the amount of marketing we've done over the last couple of years. We've been on the road a lot, just simply telling the story and reinforcing every time we have news to put out. As of today, we're trading at about 36-37 cents Canadian. We recently did a small financing, about $3.8 million. That was primarily retail investors. The question's been asked a couple of times on options and warrants. We've got about, I think, 29 million warrants currently extant. We've just seen 8 million warrants exercised this week, which has brought another couple of $1 million for the company. Management team, Michael Williams and I have been working together for about 5 years now. We met on the conference circuit many years ago. We became friends first, and then he invited me to join him running Aftermath at a point where he felt the silver market was going to justify putting together a silver-focused company. Michael Parker is our COO. He's a British guy, lives in St. Andrews in Scotland. He's married to a Peruvian, holds a Peruvian passport, speaks fluent French and Spanish, and he ran First Quantum's operations in Peru for 8 years out of Arequipa. So he's our legal representative in the company. Victor Grande came in via Mike. Victor is an indigenous Peruvian. He's our community relations and government relations person. He worked in DC for the World Bank for 2 years, so he's fully conversant with what we need to do to run our community relations and engagement programs to the highest possible standard. Other directors, David Terry and Keenan Hohol. Dave was a director of Great Bear, which sold for, I think, close to $2 billion recently. He's got a very happy grin in that picture there after cashing in his options. Keenan is a lawyer. He's currently working as counsel for Rio Tinto's exploration division. On to Berenguela. Berenguela this is what the project looks like. It's a silver copper manganese project in southern Peru that we are acquiring from SSR Mining. Their focus was primarily on pure silver assets. This was a project that, as the more they delved into it, they found a higher component of copper and manganese, and it became a project that the management felt was not core for them. So we're acquiring it for a total of 21 million Canadian over 7 years. That will give us 100% of the project, and with that, we've acquired a large database of information. 200 or 300 holes were drilled into it prior to our arrival. There's been a lot of work done, and we've been able to build on that and move the project forward fairly rapidly. We believe it's one of Latin America's premier undeveloped mining projects. It's on road, rail, power, all within 3 miles of the project. It has a local mining-friendly community. It's privately held. It's not a community association. So the land is owned by individuals, and we have access agreements with all of them. We've done a 43101 resource model, which we published last year. Mineralization is at surface, so it's potentially open pittable right from the start, probably low strip ratio. And we've just been granted a drill permit to do some infill drilling. We want to do a little bit more as we move into the preliminary engineering side of things. And we've got a couple of exploration targets on there as well that we'd like to drill test, probably towards the end of this year or early next year. This is where it is. It's on the main road between Arequipa and Juliaca in southern Peru. The nearest town is Santa Lucia, which is an agricultural and mining town, population about 5,000. The project's quite high. It's at 4,200 meters. So if you visit, so it's about 13,500 feet. Visiting there, we spend a night or two in Arequipa first, acclimatizing. You have a doctor's checkup. That's a mandatory checkup. And then you go up to site. The team stays up there for anywhere between a week to 10 days. It's hard work, but the local guys, I mean, they all live up there. So it's been very easy to put together a team of Peruvians who can operate very effectively. It's probably moderate altitude for that part of the world for some of the mining projects. I've been to some that are at 5,000 meters, which is really hard work. 4,200 is doable, but you do not ever get a hot cup of coffee. You just can't get the water hot enough to make a nice cup of coffee there. That's what the project looks like. I'll give you a little bit of a slideshow of the lie of the land there. It was mined at the turn of the last century by a company out of Liverpool in England called Lamper Mining. They were mining it for high-grade silver and copper. It was grading in places anything up to 50, 60 ounces per ton silver, multiple percent copper. So they cherry-picked a little bit at surface. And what you can see there are the dumps from the high manganese mineralization, which is where the silver resides. It resides with the manganese. We acquired a database of about 320 drill holes that have been done by SSR and an Australian junior company. We built on that. We drilled 60 odd holes of our own, and that allowed us to get to a nice solid resource statement. And from there, we've moved into metallurgical test work. Another view, you can see Santa Lucia in the distance there, and the road runs through the valley just in front of Santa Lucia. The railway line goes from there to Port of Matarani on the coast, which is a port that exports copper concentrate currently. So it's an industrial port. You can see the historical silver workings in the foreground there, and anywhere that looks dark and black is the high manganese material. It's our facility, our field office. We have representatives on site 24/7. They're local people. They're Spanish and Quechua speaking. So anybody has any questions from the local community, they can visit the site, and we have somebody there to answer the questions as and when they arrive. And all our local labor is provided from Santa Lucia. This was a drill rig operating a couple of years ago. That was actually during COVID. We were under very, very strict health protocols from the Peruvian authorities. We couldn't bring anyone from Lima or the big cities there. It was the people that were there had to stay there. Everyone was masked up. It was mandatory doctors checkups and testing. It was probably one of the best drill programs I've ever seen. Very, very well run. And I've been in the industry now for close to 40 years, the wrong side of close. And this is one of the high-grade silver workings from the turn of the last century, under careful inspection by two of our geos there. As I say, they would have scraped away probably about 500,000 tons of this material, from which they were extracting silver at about 30, 40, 50 ounces per ton. And that's our core facility. We've pulled together everything from the last 20 years of exploration into a single facility in Arequipa. Very well organized, properly databased, and from that we can pull together anything we need for metallurgical test work or any kind of geological assay, whatever. We can pull it all together very, very rapidly. So we drilled 63 holes. We've just received a drill permit that allows us to do another 220 holes if we want to. All 63 were included in the current resource statement. And from those holes, we've also compiled 4 or 5 large multi-ton samples of core that are currently in a laboratory in Reno, KCA in Reno, and that's where we're getting the metallurgical test work done on this project. I won't dwell on this too much, but it's notable that the measured and indicated there is about 40 million tons, grades between 2 to 3 ounces per ton silver, about 6 to 7% manganese, which is an increasingly crucial part of what we're doing on this project, about 0.7% copper. So in total, we've got about 2.5 million tons of manganese in measured and indicated, and about 800,000 tons in inferred, and about 100 million ounces of silver and 40 million ounces of silver in the measured and indicated and inferred category. Why we like it from a mining standpoint is that's the shape of the mineralization. It's shaped like an open pit. The blue is the manganese enrichment. The red would be very, very high grade. It's shaped like an open pit. It's going to be very easy to mine. And we think potentially life of mine strip ratio, that's the ratio of waste to ore that you mine, is going to be less than 1. So very, very, there's potential for a very rapid payback with this project. That's what the mineralization looks like. The black is the manganese. Manganese tends to occur in a couple of different colors in minerals. One would be black, the other would be bright pink. In our case, we're looking at manganese oxides, so they're black. Green would be high-grade copper. So this section would probably be running anywhere from 2 to 3% copper, possibly up to 2 kilos silver, and as high as 20% manganese. So it's arguably a primary manganese deposit with silver and copper enrichment. In terms of the size of the resource, measured and indicated, here's a bit of a comparison of the contained silver, measured and indicated for a number of different projects around the world compiled by the Silver Institute. It'd be about 4th or 5th in the world in terms of those resources for undeveloped silver deposits. I'm not going to go into the economics of silver and copper. That's something I think everybody's pretty familiar with, both the precious metal investment thesis and also the clean energy and tech thesis for silver and copper. They're both crucial elements, both in short supply. Copper in particular is facing massive deficits over the next few years. What I will do is touch very, very quickly on the manganese side of things. When I was a young geologist, you used to run away when you came across a project that had manganese in it. Chemically, it was horrible. You couldn't deal with it, and any system we came across that was enriched in manganese, management would just wave it away. Unless you could throw it into a steel smelter, we didn't go near them. What's changed since then is, first of all, the utility. Manganese now has crucial applications and is viewed all over the world as a critical metal for the battery industry. 95% of that is controlled by Chinese refining capacity. The second thing that's changed because of the utility is the pricing. This is manganese sulfate. You can have a look at it. This is the stuff that we're trying to get to. This is battery grade manganese sulfate. 95% of this is currently produced by the Chinese. This has been produced from met test work on our project. It's fun trying to get that through customs. But that as agricultural grade for food additives is about 500 US per ton. When it gets to buying that for battery grade in China, it's about 1,000 US per ton. By the time you get to Europe, it's about 2,500 US per ton. And 1 ton of manganese metal will yield 3 tons of this chemically. See, one ton of manganese metal is potentially tremendously valuable, and it has a serious impact on the economics of this project. This is just one slide of many that we've come across showing the potential supply deficit of manganese sulfate over the next few years. Estimates range from 60 or 70% growth from here up to 9-fold growth from here. Depends who you talk to. I'm not a mineral economics guy, but I do know that the impact of manganese on battery technologies is having quite something. The longer life, higher quality batteries that utilize manganese in the cathodes. What the battery companies want to see is purity of about 99.99% manganese sulfate. Our first round of test work on high-grade manganese material from the project, we got to 99.98% purity. So we can definitely get to that level of purity, certainly in a laboratory scale. What we now need to do is scale that up to a more industrial scale, measured in tens of tons or hundreds of tons. This is the simplified process route. Basically, you put the rock in a bucket and pour acid on it. What's left in the bottom of the bucket, the slurry goes through a Merrill-Crowe circuit to produce silver. We precipitate copper, zinc sulfides. That's then saleable as potentially saleable as a sulfide concentrate. And what's left is then a liquid that's enriched in manganese sulfate and calcium and magnesium. We remove the calcium and magnesium, and we end up with hopefully a crystallized product that, as I say, is about 99.99% pure manganese sulfate. Where we're at the moment, we've completed one round of met test work. We've divided the mineralization and the resource into 5 or 6 different zones based on the calcium and magnesium content. Those are acid consuming metals. So we want to avoid the inclusion of too much calcium and magnesium. So we've divided the ore body up into different zones. Each one of those zones will go through the same test process. We're currently working on the second one at the moment, and the indications are that it's responding chemically the same way as the first did. We shall see what the final results are, but we're optimistic that all of the zones in the mineralization will respond the same way. That is then feeding into the design of the process for a PEA study. We hope to have the PEA completed by this time next year, within 12 months or so. We're currently soliciting bids from consulting engineers in Lima for the infrastructure and the engineering side of things. The metallurgical work's being done in Reno. That's the technical side of the project. I won't go into it in any more detail. It baffles me, so I can't imagine what it does to non-technical people. The ESG credentials of the project, as I said, we are trying to do this to World Bank standards, and Victor Grande, who's managing the program for us, is very knowledgeable. He's spent many years working in community relations and engagement projects in Peru within the mining industry. So he's very experienced. He's indigenous Peruvian. We don't need to send anybody from North America to the site. All we're doing there at the moment is just maintaining the core facility. Most of the work is engineering work. So it's completely managed locally by Peruvians, and we've had a tremendous experience with their competency, both technically and in the management of the projects. Very, very good people. We're sponsoring a couple of kids locally to go through technical college to learn a bit more about geology and mining to become more skilled labor for us. And the way forward for us would be to sort of grow local capacity rather than you don't hand out money, you grow capacity for making things that we need or for helping to support what we're doing there. Another quick aspect of the project, we do have 2 additional targets represented by the 2 yellow squares there. The one up to the right is a hole that was drilled historically. It's about 123 meters at nearly 1.2% copper. That's never been followed up. We've just received drill permits for that a couple of days ago, so we intend to follow that up in the next few months. That could potentially add additional resources. Either way, 123 meters at 1% plus copper is a good intersection. And then down to the southwest, that is a target that we only received the data for recently. It was data that was held by Rio Tinto. We finally winkled it out of them a couple of months ago. And what we found was very interesting. There's a large geophysical target, which is represented by those kind of amorphous green blobs there. There's a magnetite mine nearby, and we're seeing up to 2% copper at surface. So all the indications are that we're looking at some kind of what we call an intrusion-related target down there, maybe a skarn, perhaps a porphyry. Either way, this needs drilling. We're permitting it now. We would expect the drill permit about the first quarter next year. The process is not fast. We have to do environmental monitoring. We have to pick flowers, measure the dust in the air, look at water quality. All that has to be done over a period of about a year before you can get a drill permit. It's slow, but it works. So we plan to drill that next year. That is potentially some big upside for this project. That's our main project in a very quick nutshell. The project benefits from excellent infrastructure. We're just off the road. It takes 20 minutes from Santa Lucia to get right into the middle of the project. It's de-risked geologically. We're pretty much at predictability now with our drill holes, so we can tell before we drill a hole what we're going to see in that hole. It's a robust 43101 report. We believe the engineering side of things is going to be very straightforward. It's good rock. It holds up. The workings that are there have been open for 100 years. It's going to be potentially low strip ratio. And so far, we're encouraged, and we believe we can probably get to battery grade manganese sulfate as a co-product. Valuation of that component remains to be seen based on pricing, but it's potentially quite a large proportion of the revenue from this project, assuming it becomes a mine. One of the largest global undeveloped silver deposits, with a significant copper component as well. And our objective over the next 12 months is to move this through to preliminary engineering and hopefully get to some positive economics, at which point we would then move to a pre-feas and construction of a pilot plant to demonstrate that we can scale up the manganese sulfate chemistry. With that, I'll invite questions. Yes.
Sorry. Love CRDs. Is your project primarily or entirely within the oxide zone? And how deep do you think the unoxide might be?
We haven't seen any. It's just all oxides. It's all manganese oxides. We don't completely understand what it is yet.
Well, it's the AMOM halo, right?
I mean, some people have tried to tell us it's primary manganese oxides. Other people have tried to tell us that it's oxidized carbonates.
We can talk about this later. We'll get too technical.
You get out my depth very rapidly on that one. But we're getting some work done at St Andrews University in Scotland on the mineralogy at the moment.
Hey, any other questions for Ralph?
Trinity?
Oh, sorry. I think he wants you.
How many people work full-time in the company, and how much burn rates, and how much money in the bank, and are you going to raise money for next project?
So we've got about there's two or three full-time up in Vancouver. We've probably got a team of about 15 or 20 people down in Peru. Because we've been doing a lot of organizational work, getting all this stuff together and cataloging it and figuring out what's been done was a long process. Burn rate varies depending on what we're doing. The MET test work has been costing us probably about $50,000 a month. Between here and Peru, monthly G&A is probably $200,000. But we're running a whole team down there. Are we going to raise more money? Eventually, yes, because we're essentially a venture capital company. We have to. We've currently got, as of 2 days ago, we saw $2 million worth of warrants come in. So we've got about 4.5 million Canadian in the bank currently. But we are seeing now with the way the market's gone recently, we're seeing a steady flow of cash coming in from warrant exercising. So got about another 4 or 5 million bucks that I think potentially come in between now and the end of the year. The big tranche was 25-cent warrants, 8 million at 25 cents. That was one of our big shareholders exercised that.
So in your transition to the manganese sulfate, has that increased your metallurgical testing costs? Is it going to increase your design engineering costs?
Yes, absolutely.
Is it a sizable amount? Can you kind of speak to that to us?
It has increased them, yes. It hasn't increased them as much as it could have done because some of that work was done historically, and we've just gone back and double checked that work was done to the right standard. So for us, it was simply the last step of taking it from copper silver met and actually just adding on the manganese sulfate. Now, every manganese oxide system is slightly different chemically. It will have an impact on the process, the overall cost of the plant for sure. The real trade-off is going to be between silver, copper, and manganese production. How much silver can you produce without producing too much manganese sulfate so you can't sell it anymore? You know, that's the PEA balance that we're going to be working on that trade-off.
All right. If there are no more questions, Ralph, thank you very much for your time.
You good to start? Okay. Okay, our next presentation will be from Lauren Bagaw. She's the head of investor relations of Reyna Silver Corp, which trades on the OTCQX Best Market under the symbol RSNVF and on the TSXV under the symbol RSLV. And as a reminder for our virtual audience, you can submit questions for Lauren in the box to the left of the slides. And welcome back, Lauren.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I obviously love talking about Reyna Silver. We're a exploration company, and while we focus on silver, really what we're looking is for big projects. So we go after high grade district scale, and we take it from a full system perspective. So we're looking at the whole piece, especially because when systems get big, when they get high grade, they tend to also be polymetallic. And so you get your silver along with your critical metals. And I'll be talking about carbonate replacement deposits a little bit in a moment. And just to take a second, when we're talking about high grade district scale, what do we mean by that? And our idea of high grade is high enough grade within the jurisdiction that you're in, that you can make money when silver is at whatever your personal nightmare is. And simultaneously, especially considering the cyclic nature of the resource market, you want something that's big enough that it can survive multiple market cycles, because that's how you get that increased margin, and that's how you make a whole bunch of money. And so you can sleep at night through the low times, and you can party all night if you want to at the high times. And that is the filter that we use when we're selecting our projects, because we think that's the way that you can generate the most value for your investors. Obviously, we're going to make forward-looking statements. We're a junior exploration company. Everything is looking forward. It's important to do your research, and we're obviously happy to provide materials for that. So we have 4 key assets that fit through that filter. We have an exploration team that has been serially successful. Not only is it my father, exploration team leader, Dr. Peter McGaw, he's the co-founder of Mag Silver, but the geologists that we have, the boots on the ground guys, these were the ones that were part of the major discoveries for Mag Silver, whether or not you're talking Juanicipio, Cinco de Mayo, or even Platosa. In some ways, you can think of Reyna Silver having the boys are back together and trying to see whether or not they can do it yet again. And between that and our CEO, Jorge Ramiro Monroy, we've been able to put together a balanced investor register with strong support that's allowed us to have access to capital, even when our peers haven't. So, the 4 projects, the part that we get excited about. So we have 2 in Mexico and 2 in Nevada, because a stool is more stable with 4 legs than just 2. And we have 3 that are carbonate replacement deposits, and we have 1, which is a little bit of a unicorn. It's called Batopilas, and it is actually a native silver district. And in fact, we've gone into this place where historically silver, pure silver, was coming out of the ground. Gold wasn't seen. We said, how much bigger is this system? And when we did that and stepped out, we found gold. Our other 3 projects are carbonate replacement deposits, including the Gigi project, which is at the heart of something called the Santa Eulalia Mining District. This is one of the world's largest carbonate replacement deposits. And from what we know studying the Santa Eulalia district in particular, and CRDs worldwide, it produced 500 million ounces of silver just from half of the system. We're looking for that other half. We also have the 2 assets up in Nevada, Medicine Springs and Griffin. Medicine Springs, we think we have the full system there. We're pulling apart the pieces. And then last year, we acquired Griffin. Today, I'm going to focus on Griffin because, well, that's where I drive out to on Monday, and that's also where we'll be drilling this summer. And it is, an example of when the market's been where it's been. That's when the truly great projects pop loose. And this thing's amazing because it's gold, silver, and critical metals. So it's a Carlin type gold system, and that is overprinting on top of a CRD system. And on top of that, we've got copper and nickel, and that's one of the reasons why we are focusing on Griffin, because we'd be absolutely silly not to. So, catalyst for 2024, we've got a drill program starting this summer. Coming up, we have an independent NI 43-101 compliant technical report so that we can talk about the historic work that's been done on this asset. And of course, we're doing that quality geology of sampling and mapping and geophysics so that we can go into our drilling program with the most honed in targets possible. In terms of the team behind us, my father's the technical lead. We also have Rene Ramirez, who has been in some ways my father's right-hand man in some of his discoveries, along with Manuel Ruiz, and our CEO is Jorge Ramiro Monroy. Cap structure, we have almost 200 million shares outstanding. We have an average daily volume of 500,000, and cash on hand, our war chest, as you can think about it, we have 6.3 million Canadian. And one of the things that we benefit from with the team's success is we have strong institutional support, and our current market cap is 36 million Canadian. So I'm going to take a moment and talk briefly about Archie's rule. I'm sorry for anyone who was at my father and my presentation yesterday at SME. This will be a little bit of a redux of that. But what it comes down to is when you run out the numbers, your recovery has to be at least 2 times your operating cost. And when you plot that out, that tells you that grade is king, but scale is reina. Reina is Spanish for queen. So we like to make that little joke here. And why that matters is that's one of the features that we look at to make sure that a project has the chance to become something significant. We're not looking to mess around. Our goal is to find the kind of thing that really moves the needle. And we believe that we have the chance to do that at any of our 4 projects. But this summer, we're going to focus on Griffin. So we acquired this last year. It's an over 10,000 hectare project. You've got the gold, the silver, and the critical metals. And it lies along the Carlin Trend and the Battle Mountain Eureka Trend. And because of being in the middle of gold mega districts, the focus here has been on the gold mineralization. And that makes sense considering the fact that gold is absolutely littering this project. It's everywhere. But our question is, how do you refine or narrow into where the bigger portions of the system is? How do you understand the framework that's controlling it? And one of the ways that we believe we can do that is because there is a CRD type deposit here as well. And you actually see that in this part of Nevada. So where you see these red dots, those are carbonate replacement deposits. 72 kilometers to our south, I-80 Gold has been looking at the Ruby Hill deposit within the Eureka district. Eureka is famous for the high-grade silver lead zinc with a gold kicker. And then they found the Archimedes Carlin gold system sitting on top. And so that was the focus. That's what people associated with Eureka. And then a couple of years ago, saying, let's take the blinders off. Let's focus on the full system. They found a massive carbonate replacement deposit sitting underneath. And you can also see those at the Emigrant Rain District as well as the Railroad District. And we think we have significant potential for that at Griffin as well. So I'm going to take a moment and explain carbonate replacement deposits. I see my job as translating geologist into English. So we're going to start in geologist, and then I'm going to try to translate into English. So CRDs are awesome because they're continuous, they're polymetallic, they're zoned, but you also get high recovery rates despite a small footprint in terms of their expression at surface. They typically are underground mines, and they're all derived from an intrusive. What's an intrusive? Well, you typically associate that with a porphyry. So, the copper gold deposits that you normally see. And what happens is that pink blob right there, that is the intrusive. And coming off of that intrusive is acidic mineralized fluid. And it flows through fractures, faults, essentially the plumbing of the system, the routes for the mineralization. And when it hits the carbonate, hence the carbonate replacement deposit, you get an acid-base reaction. So if you ever did those paper mache volcanoes with the vinegar and the baking soda and you mix them together and you get all those bubbles, that same reaction's happening underground, which also means that it's creating its own porosity. And that process happens again and again. So the longer lived your system, the bigger your system, the higher grade it gets. And on top of that, one of the things that's exciting about CRDs is you get your silver, your lead, your zinc, your copper. They're also what are called self-scavenging systems. So whatever rock unit they go through before getting to the carbonate, they go through an area that's got critical metals. You get those too. And that's one of the pieces that's exciting about CRDs. You get to have your cake and eat it too. So let's think about this in a way that's a little bit more approachable. Let's talk about these as if they're a public transportation system. So that porphyry source, that's like your bus terminal, right? And that acidic mineralized fluid, those are your buses. And they're fully loaded with metals. And as they leave along those bus routes, those are your structures. And different metals get off in different neighborhoods. So when you're close to your bus terminal and you're in the downtown area, that's what we call a skarn. And skarns are higher in copper, gold, lead, zinc. Silver grade's going to be a little lower than it is in the outboard portion of the system, but that's where everything's voluminous. As you make your way further out, you get to the suburbs. And those are what are typically associated with the carbonate replacement deposits. And they're super high grade in silver, lead, zinc, plus some critical metals as well. Sometimes you can see these things elevated in nickel or indium or germanium or gallium. They can be really cool. And then at the very end of the system, the elements that fell asleep in the back of the bus finally get kicked out. And those are our trace elements. Those are our halo. So, sometimes in these systems, you can see what we call an argentiferous manganese oxide mineralization halo, or AMOM, as we like to refer to it. And that can be that black color like you saw with Aftermath, or this really gaudy pink. The other component on these is their replacement system. So when those metals get off the bus, carbonate gets back on, along with some hitchhikers. So typically you can get some lead or manganese. And the cool part about that is when it reprecipitates further out in the system and you put a UV light on it, it glows hot pink or bright red. And that allows us to really vector in. So you could slightly miss your CRD, your suburb, but you can say, oh, I'm getting really close, and use that as a way to move into the system. So the other component on carbonate replacement deposits is it's a full spectrum, right? Typically, these things have been divided into your CRD portion, what we refer to as a chimney manto, or your skarn, or your porphyry, probably because these are big systems, and so that way your brain doesn't break trying to think about the full piece. But it's all part of a continuum, and it's not just linear. These things look like almost a tree coming up. And one of the things that we're doing at Reina Silver is we're exploring them from that full system perspective. We're taking into consideration, okay, where is the porphyry? Because that's where everything gets bigger. And that's also where you could potentially find the skarn mineralization. You can then use the two ends of the system, work them against each other, and that's how this exploration team has historically had significant success. So, as I mentioned earlier, Griffin, it's got this gold mineralization all over it. That's been the focus. The blinders have been on, mind you, 9 out of the 12 holes in the most recent drill campaign by Agnico hit gold mineralization. But the question is, how do you narrow in? How do you find those main structures, that main plumbing? Because you can think about the gold mineralization as being like a bunch of little cars. So if your CRD style mineralization is those buses, your Carlin type gold mineralization, that's like a bunch of little cars going out. So our question is, where are the main highways? Because if you can figure out where that is, you can then work your way out on the gold as well. So on top of that, Griffin has this strong CRD component to it as well. And so far, our team, boots on the ground, have actually stepped on 8 out of the 13 key features associated with carbonate replacement deposits. So you have to be in a main street carbonate replacement deposit porphyry belt. As I pointed out earlier with those little red dots, we're definitely there. On top of that, you have to have a big bunch of carbonate because we're not looking for something little, and you need the ability for room to grow for those systems to get big. And we're also not interested in low grade. We're looking for something high grade. And one of the things that really intrigued us about Griffin is we have this, I don't know if this, oh, that won't work. We have this zone where we have silver grades up to 2,000 grams per ton silver. And you can stand on top of some of these oxidized historic mantos that have been exploited minimally, but you stand there and you go, this is a really high grade structure. Where's the nearest drill hole? 1.5 kilometers away. And that structure runs for almost 3 kilometers. So we're going to have fun looking at that in the future. And then on top of that, what you can see is there's these linear features, right? Those are big major structures. They're long lived. And they appear to be taking multiple stages of mineralization on top of it. I mean, you look at these structures, they're wildly mineralized. You get gold in them, you get zinc. I mean, we have zinc numbers that are 3 to 35% zinc in samples. We get the high-grade silver numbers. We get high-grade lead numbers. It tells us this is the potential for a really serious system. Let's look at the structures. And one of the things that's been brilliant here is because the project and the underlying vendors behind it are a group of geologists, they preserved all the historic samples as well as the 23 core holes that have been drilled here. So this spring, we brought up the team and we went through all 23 historic core holes. And one of the things that really struck us is in those holes, only 2 of them were focused on structures and only 1 of them hit. The other one didn't go to that area. And as a result, this leads us with the ability to say, let's build upon the historic work. This is a great launch pad. And there's some pretty serious targets that have yet to be explored. On top of that, we get to build on a whole bunch of geophysics. So there's MAG, there's GRAV, there's 39 kilometers of IP, CSAMT, 17 kilometers of NSAMT. We're actually working with a group to apply machine learning to that geophysics because you can process it a lot quicker, and that will allow us to incorporate that geophysics into the drill program this summer, despite just getting the project last year. So the other component, as we were talking about, structures are important. So if you layer it and you put the gold on top, the gold shows up. And then you put the silver on top, the silver really shows up. And then there's the third component here. As we talked about, we're looking at this from a full systems perspective. CRDs are related to those porphyry intrusions. As you get closer to your heat source, you get copper. And everything in red there is copper. And this area where you see the big blob of red, it's called the Saddler Zone. And there, every 20 to 30 meters, we have this absolutely gaudy copper mineralization bleeding out of all the structures. And those samples have come back 5 to almost 12% copper. And this is definitely a target for us this summer. As I said earlier, from an exploration vector point of view, you can figure out where the source is. You can work those pieces against each other. And then there's the whole component of, well, people get excited about the porphyry drivers on these systems as well, because as you all know, those can be really significant. On top of that, we have this area building upon a drill hole that was done last year, which was, or not last year, 21, by the previous operators in here. that intersected the sample of this structure came back 25 grams gold. They discovered it when they were doing the drill pad. And when they did the drilling, not aiming at the structure, they intersected 1.5 meters of almost 9 grams gold. So one of the first targets we're going to look at, stepping on the other side of that structure and testing that, because that structure goes for almost 1 kilometer. And there's a whole series of them. We want to understand what that geometry is like and what happens to that when you get towards depth. And then, of course, we also have that silver component as well, because where that high grade copper is also where we get some of our best silver numbers. So obviously, we are excited to be going after Griffin this summer, see what we can pull apart, see if we can figure out the framework of this system, how big it is, and find out where we need to focus. One of the things that this exploration team has been very successful on is not getting distracted by the shiny objects, not getting too focused on a small area and looking at the bigger picture. Essentially, look at the forest instead of just a couple of trees. And that is our goal at Griffin, because if we're right about any one of these components, this could be a significant discovery in Nevada. And if we're right about multiple, buckle up. So, because I have time, I will talk about our other 3 projects. So we also have Medicine Springs in Nevada. This is also a carbonate replacement deposit target. And there we have 11 out of the 13 key features associated with carbonate replacement deposits. Essentially, when we talked about the top 3 earlier, the rest of these features tell you that the bus left the terminal fully loaded many, many times. And that's one of the things that you want to see as evidence of a potent system and something that has the potential for getting big. But when we first got this project, we wanted to see, is this a Reyna silver quality project? Do we have the high grade? Do we have the room to grow? And so in our reconnaissance drilling program, we did a nearly 800-meter hole. Everything that you see in blue is carbonate. So check, room to grow. On top of that, that first hole also hit almost 1 kilo of silver over 2.4 meters. We went, okay, this is a big piece. And then we stepped out 1.75 kilometers and hit 7.4 meters of almost 200 grams silver. And what we have done is we've been working on this reconnaissance drilling program, and we have now determined that in a 1.75 by 600 meter zone, we have a 75% hit rate for high-grade silver mineralization. 7 out of the 9 structures that we've targeted have come back with higher grade silver. So this is obviously a potent system. Then we did geophysics. And we have this area where the copper increases. As you can see, there's these lines here. So silver's in blue, the green's the lead zinc, the red's the copper. That's the absolute textbook zonation within a CRD system. And aligning with that and aligning with structures, we have a geophysics anomaly. And on top of that, you see this weird little island that's in there? When you have a strong transition from conductive to resistive, that's something to pay attention to, especially when it's associated with your highest grade silver numbers in sampling. So out there, we get about 1,200 grams per ton silver. So you can see why we're also excited about this CRD project in Nevada. And then, of course, we have Geeky. This is at the heart of the Santa Eulalia mining district. It produced 500 million ounces of silver. And that was at a grade of 310 grams silver and combined 15% lead zinc. It's one of the world's great carbonate replacement deposits. And from what we know, we've yet to find that downtown area or the bus terminal. That's half the systems that's missing. And if you have suburbs that are that big, you want to figure out where they came from. One thing I would point out with carbonate replacement deposits, you see this thing over here that looks like a spaghetti monster? That's the historic West Camp workings. And right here, those 2 black triangles are Eiffel Towers. You could actually stack 2 Eiffel Towers within the Potosi chimney, and that thing ran over 400 grams per ton silver. So when we're talking about CRDs, they can be really big systems, they can be really high grade, and they can carry multiple metals. So our idea is to vector in towards the source. We believe we're getting really close, and we're in an area with 1,200 meters of limestone, massive limestone, which gives us 1,200 meters for those things to get big. And one of the things that we've been doing is, how do we get a strategic drill target? Because Gigi, the reason why it hasn't been discovered yet, is hiding underneath a blanket of volcanics. Not very thick, but one of our questions is, how do you find that source? And we had this geophysics anomaly that's associated with structures. And went, okay, how do we really vector in on this? And so we worked with ExploreTech to use machine learning AI optimization on this geophysics. So instead of giving you a single best case scenario for your geophysics, it gives you 1,000 best case scenarios. And then you're able to layer those, and then you can design a drill hole that hits as many of those as possible. And so that takes that red blob theory and allows you to really hone in on it. So we're excited at some point to be testing this target. If that wasn't enough, we also have Batopilas. Batopilas is historically Mexico's highest grade silver district, considering that 9 out of the 15 largest silver districts in the world are in Mexico. The thing that is special about Batopilas is the main ore mineral there was native silver. Produced 300 million ounces at an average diluted grade of over 1,500 grams per ton. That photo right there is 1 month's production in 1906. That's mining by hand. That is 350,000 ounces of sterling silver, essentially. Each one of those are 25 kilogram bars. And for an example, on the right side there, that's what some of the mineralization looks like. And one of the cool things about this is I even have a Batopila specimen in my purse. I actually had a crystal popped off the back, sent to my jeweler. They literally just heated it up and put it straight into my engagement ring, because that's how pure this stuff is. And the thing that is cool about the Batopilas, what are referred to as ore shoots, is over the course of 3 to 5 meters, these things would blow out. And you'd get 0.5 meter to 2 meters of this almost Brillo pad of native silver. That would go for 30 to 80 meters, and then hundreds of meters down. Taper back out, 30 to 80 meters, blow out again. And the cores of those ore shoots, that 0.5 meter to 2 meters, those ran up to 2% silver. And because I realized most people aren't used to talking about silver in percentages, that's 20,000 grams per ton silver as an average grade within the cores of the ore shoots. And so our question was, how much bigger is this system? So we stepped out into the northeast, and there we found gold, mineable widths and grades of gold, over 3.5 meters of over 8 grams gold. So we did a whole rethink of this project. We took a step back. We said, how does this fit in? We did sampling, we did structural work, we did geophysics, and that brought us to a series of targets where you get the stacked set of anomalies, put them together, and we decided to test those. We had some that were undercover, and we had some that were in an area that we thought we had a higher chance of hitting, and there we intersected in hole 57 a new native silver vein. And what's exciting to us here is you can see the white with the silver in it. In the center of that is something called a breccia. And the matrix, or the cement that's holding that together, is a silver sulfide called a canthite. And we know from historic work done here, that was the feature that you saw right before the blowout happened, and you got into the ore shoots. So what we're now doing is working our way into figuring out which direction we need to go to find this. And on top of that, starting just 3 meters from surface in hole 58, we hit 30 meters of silver mineralization with 9 meters of over 600 grams silver. So we're excited to be continuing to work on the targets here and understanding this system, because how can you not love something with these kind of grades? especially now that we have this gold component as well. So we've been busy. We're currently working on making sure that we have well-defined honed targets for the 3 projects that we're not drilling this summer. So that way we've got a quiver that's full and we're ready to go, especially if the market turns. And then on top of that, we're drilling at Griffin. And how can you not love that project? So if you guys have any questions, comments, or jokes, I think I have like a minute.
Okay.
Just wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about with June elections happening in Mexico, how that would impact mining operations, given that both the current president and the opposing candidate have been talking about mining operations proposals for policy.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're keeping a key eye on right now is June 2nd. That will give us clarity into what's going on moving forward. I would say that one of the things that we benefit with at Reina Silver is both of our projects, we've won what are called amparos. So essentially we're locked into the historic understanding of the mining jurisdictions. And on top of that, we'll see where these go. The thing about big projects, these big systems, is they take a while to put the pieces together. So, yes, we have this situation right now in Mexico, but if you're thinking long term, for instance, like my father made the discovery of Juanicipio when I was in 2nd grade. It's just now in production, but that thing is absolutely massive and it's making buckets of money. And that's kind of our theory moving forward, is that's the kind of deposit that we're looking for, because that's the thing that creates generational wealth.
Thank you, Lauren. Unfortunately, we're out of time. If anybody has further questions don't go to the right. If anybody has further questions for Reina Silver, please seek out Lauren, and Bethany is with Reina as well. Thank you.
We're going to get going. Okay. So our next presentation will be from Ian Fraser. He's the CEO, VP of Exploration and Director of Fathom Nickel, which trades on the OTCQB Venture Market under the symbol FNICF and on the CSE under the symbol FNI. As a reminder to our virtual audience, you can submit questions for Ian in the box to the left of the slides. Welcome, Ian.
Thank you very much, John, for the introduction, and to the OTC for inviting Fathom Nickel, and my colleague Doug Porter was here as well. He was in a panel discussion yesterday that was put on by the joint OTC and CSE. So as our opening slide indicates, we're a nickel-focused company exploring in the wonderful province of Saskatchewan, Canada. You all know the rules here, notice to reader. I'll just skip right through this. So we formed the company in 2015. We were a private company, and we were looking ahead. We were looking at battery metals, and we remained private right up till the spring of 2021. We were sort of selling ourselves as a battery metal company, and having been at the SME over the last couple of days, there's a much bigger picture here with respect to nickel, copper, cobalt, and it's very, very clear that North America needs to have a good supply of magmatic nickel sulfide going forward. So, the EVs aren't going away and the green transition is going away, but nickel's been a wonderful metal for several, primarily stainless steel, and that demand is certainly not going away. So I mentioned North America and Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan is an absolutely fantastic place to be exploring. It's a wonderful jurisdiction. The geology is fantastic. From a regulatory perspective, it's a easy place to work. With respect to First Nations, we have very, very good rapport, consistent dialogue. We hire First Nations people. They are pro-development. They just need to be informed, and we keep them informed. And getting back to the supply of North American nickel, when you realize what's coming out of Indonesia and what's coming out of China, and their very, very laxed approach to social justice and environmental regulations, it's very, very important that we do supply or secure North American supply, and Saskatchewan is, I think, a fantastic place to be doing this. We became a public company in the spring of 2021. We set out to raise between $3 to $5 million. Thanks to a tweet by Elon Musk, we hit the market perfectly. The timing was exceptional. We ended up closing on $11 million, and that gave us the capital to get out and to explore. A very, very quick company snapshot. This stings when I look at this. The chart on the right, currently trading below 10 cents. We've got 140 million shares outstanding. Our single biggest shareholder would be Crescat Capital out of Denver. They've been a tremendous supporter right from the IPO. This time last year, we were trading 15 to 20 cents. And here we are a year later, and I think both projects have progressed tremendously, and hopefully we can get that reflected in the share price as we go forward. The Trans-Hudson orogeny. I was, one of my colleagues, Dr. Peter Lightfoot, he said, Ian, that is the nickel camp. The Trans-Hudson orogeny comes up through the province of Saskatchewan, takes a right-hand turn through the province of Manitoba, across Hudson's Bay, and also incorporates northern Quebec. And as this orogeny was forming 1.8 billion years ago, the Thompson Nickel Belt was also forming. The Lynn Lake Nickel Camp was also forming. The Kate Smith Belt in northern Quebec, where Glencore has their operations, that was forming. And it just doesn't make any sense that this would stop at the Saskatchewan-Manitoba border, and it doesn't. Both our properties do have nickel, and our goal is to demonstrate that both of these projects can develop into very, very significant nickel districts. So we are a two-project company. The larger of the two you see on the top, that is the Albert Lake project, over 90,000 hectares. And importantly, this is the home of the historic Rottenstone mine. If I can draw your attention to these grades, how many places in the world can you get 3.3% nickel, 1.8% copper, and 9 grams platinum palladium plus gold? The knock on the project was, it was a mining operation 1965 through 1969. They extracted 26,000 tons of a deposit that was estimated to be about 50,000 tons. But geologically, this doesn't make any sense that you could have all that metal packed into just one, what turned out to be a single outcrop. With the $11 million, we set out to prove that rotten stone is not all by itself, and I think we've accomplished that. The second project to the south, it's a distance of about 60 kilometers, middle to middle. The Goshager Lake project, 22,000 hectares. Here, drilling 1966 through 1968 defined a low-grade resource of roughly 4.3 million tons at a grade of 0.3% nickel and 0.08% copper. Now, they didn't mention cobalt, and there is cobalt in this deposit, and I'll be talking about that here in the very near future. The company snapshot, this time last year, we had drilled our very first hole at Goshager, and we set the bar pretty high for ourselves. We intersected 58 meters of 1.5% nickel, 0.11% cobalt, and 3% copper. And that really did garner us a lot of attention. So if we get right into the Goshager Lake project, and the drilling that was done in 1966 through 1968, they were drilling vertical holes. And the vertical hole that you see on this section here, hole number I-12, 290 meters of 0.5% or almost 0.6% nickel. And down at the very bottom of this 290 meters, there's a 9-meter section that runs 2.4% nickel. And you can see that they did assay for cobalt here, and the cobalt grade is 0.14. So there is a high grade component to this deposit, this historic deposit. But the fact that they were drilling vertical holes, and we now know that this high grade is aligned in steeply dipping, steeply plunging chutes. If you can imagine a vertical hole in front and behind, you're potentially going to miss this. And we've now been able to drill this thing in the proper orientation using inclined drill holes, and we are being successful in defining more of this high-grade mineralization. Also of note, the diagram on the left-hand side, the rectangle is defining an area that was flown with the VTEM survey in 2008. The operator at the time didn't do anything with that data, so we've accumulated that data, and we recognize multiple geophysical targets that have the same signature as the Goshager Lake deposit, and we look forward to testing those. 10 kilometers to the southeast, you see there's this occurrence called the Mall Lake Nickel Occurrence. Here too, drilling in 1966, 1967, 8 meters of 1% nickel and 0.3% copper. And so here, the same rock types, the same nickel copper ratios, and we feel that 10 kilometers away, this has regional scale. And also on the property, we have some zinc and lead mineralization. So it's always comforting to be in an area where we've got lots of mineralization going on. We started drilling last year in February of 2023, 2 holes. We drilled some holes in September of 2023. We drilled some holes this year. We're going to be putting out a press release on Tuesday, releasing the results of the drilling. So in total, we're just over 5,000 meters and 16 drill holes to date. Now, a model. I was very, very intrigued by the roadmap in the previous discussion. We are dealing with a magmatic nickel sulfide system at Goshager Lake. Polygon that you see on the left-hand side and this diagram on the right-hand side, we're in the upper levels of a system that is being fed by a feeder at depth, and we're now recognizing that this is a very chaotic, very complex, multi-phased, intrusive, and this is all good with respect to nickel mineralization. And I mentioned the high grade vertical chutes. So if you can imagine these red fingers that you see in that diagram, these are these magmatic breccias. This is the higher grade material that's enclosed in that yellow halo. This is disseminated to interstitial style of mineralization. And the breccias are the final event. So we recognize at least 3 magmatic events here. And the last event, the magmatic breccias, the high-grade nickel mineralization, this is coming from a source that we have not found yet. And we feel it's, with respect to geophysics and everything else, there's potentially something at depth that we have not quite got to. So just a summary of the 2023 drilling. I mentioned the very first drill hole. That certainly got us some attention. It was ranked the 8th best nickel drill intercept in 2023. It was featured in Miner. You know now that the 58 meters is a function. This wasn't intentional, but we were drilling down plunge of one of these steeply oriented vertical chutes. It's encased in a significant zone of mineralization, 170 meters, about 0.6. So we spent 2023 figuring out the orientation of this style of mineralization. And while we were drilling the very first hole, we were able to use borehole EM for the very first time on this project, and we did the surveys in some historic drill holes that were drilled in 2018, and this blue plate that you see down at the bottom, this was derived from a survey in a hole drilled in 2018 that said there's something very, very conductive off hole left and below the trace of the drill hole. We targeted that area of conductivity with our hole number 9, and we had a 80-meter interval of elevated nickel mineralization 0.3 and above. And within that, we had semi-massive to massive sulfides that are running 1.35% nickel over hole thicknesses of 3 meters. So we now know when we target these borehole EM anomalies, we are getting elevated nickel mineralization. Polished section, the polished drill core piece that you see in the middle, this is at a depth of about 144 meters down hole in hole number 3. I'm pointing out the ghost-like coarse granular pentlandite crystals. This is the nickel sulfide pentlandite. And again, when this curates the fact that it's hosted in pyrrhotite creates a wonderful conductor. So the borehole EM is a tremendous, it's called a giant metal detector essentially, and it points us in the right direction within this overall larger disseminated halo. The borehole EM tells us where the really good mineralization is located. And the second picture that you see there of core, it's important to point out, I mentioned this, this late phased period of the sulfide breccia. So you can see there's a very, very sharp contact there. This massive sulfide vein is coming from a massive sulfide source. This is, we think we're getting close, but this is really what we're trying to focus our exploration on going forward. Is we can build tons, we can improve grade, but if we get into this massive sulfide source, we'll really be into something spectacular. Yeah, and just post the 2023 drilling, you can see up in the top right, other areas of strong conductivity, off hole of holes that we drilled in 2023, and the same thing on the top upper left. Now, having understood the geometry and getting a better understanding of how things were aligned in 2023, our 2024 strategy was to drill consistent azimuth from northwest to southeast using a variety of inclinations, and in some cases, up to 3 drill holes from a single drill pad. I mentioned in the previous slide, the hole number 23009. When we probed that hole, it was telling us there's still things very, very conductive off hole to the left. Our holes 12 and 13 targeted that area. You can see the bottom two pictures are from drill hole number 12 at a depth of 400 plus meters. The middle picture is from hole number 13. The assays are coming out next week. I think if you recall the previous slide, the coarse granular pentlandite that's being pointed out, if you look closely, there might be some of the pentlandite in that particular photograph as well. The upper picture there is results of our drill hole number 16. You can see that there's a silver colored plate in behind this grade shell that we've created. That was derived from our drill hole number 5 that we drilled last year. The borehole EM said there's something very, very conductive below the drill hole. And we tested that scenario. You can see the mineralization that we intersected with hole number 16, top photograph. So again, borehole EM is guiding us to the semi-massive to massive sulfides. And we're being successful at I mentioned cobalt, and we knew there was cobalt in the work that they did historically, but they didn't do a very good job of sampling it. So that was one of the reasons we drilled that first hole was we wanted to get a good cross section of the mineralization, sampled it top to bottom for cobalt. I talked about the pentlandite. It is a very, very coarse nature, which is good with respect to metallurgy. But what's unique about our pentlandite is the amount of cobalt that is associated with the pentlandite mineralization. So with some microprobe work that we've done at the University of Western Ontario, what you see on the top left is the amount of nickel in pentlandite. Goshagar is in red. The Norilsk is indicated in yellow. Sudbury is the middle one, followed by Thompson and Voisey's Bay on the far right-hand side. So with respect to other world-class nickel camps, the pentlandite mineralization is pretty comparable with respect to how much nickel is in it. But what's really cool is the box diagram on the right. You can see that we have up to 6 times more cobalt associated with our pentlandite than Norilsk, than Sudbury, than Thompson, and Voisey's Bay has elevated cobalt. So if we do our job properly, we define significant tons. I think we can improve on that historic rate of 0.3 with this cobalt credit, with the copper. We put a bow on this. I think we can attract some of the majors, and this would be a pretty attractive concentrate for the likes of Vale, Glencore, BHP, and we have had discussions with all of them. The middle slide is just looking at this VTEM data that I mentioned earlier. Those yellow polygons, these are additional Goshagar-like geophysical features. We haven't got to. We're going to have some boots on the ground starting June 10th. And we want to get out. We want to look at these things. And if it's mineralized gabbro, I don't think I mentioned, but we're dealing with mafic rocks essentially. If these are comparable rock types as to what we have at Goshagar, this could be significant with respect to defining other deposits. The dashed blue line, that's an interpreted shear zone, a suture, if you will, which would be an absolutely fantastic conduit for these magmas that find their way up into the Earth's surface. On the far right, we're doing surface geophysics. We're finding additional areas of conductivity outside of the historic deposit margins. So these two are things that we need to ground truth first and eventually get to the drill stage. Albert Lake, I mentioned the historic Rottenstone mine. I absolutely love this insert photograph. This is circa 1965. You see that crater-like feature. That was the hill of Rottenstone. That's where the name Rottenstone comes from. The indigenous folks described it as a very, very gossamerous outcrop, hence Rottenstone. They hauled all this equipment in by air, by winter roads. They mined in the summer months, and they shipped the concentrate all the way to Sudbury, Ontario for final refinement. Really a fascinating piece of Saskatchewan mining history. We have 90,000 hectares. I got to get going here. The shaded area that you see there, this is where we have done soil geochemistry to date. The central area is the area that we call the Trombley-Olson claim area. This is an area that we did soil geochemistry in 2022. But with that $11 million, as I mentioned, we went out. We wanted to prove that historic Rottenstone was not out there all by itself. We've also proven that there is more of this mineralization south of the historic mine workings. It's in direct contact with a fault. The deposit's in the hanging wall of the fault. We feel there should be a footwall extension to that fault. We have not found that yet. 500 meters to the west-northwest of the historic workings, the Bay Island Trend is a new discovery of mineralized ultramafic rock. It has a strike length of 300 plus meters. It's open, but we recognize it is lower grade than the historic Rottenstone. But nonetheless, that is proof of concept that we are now in a large magmatic system. Central area, this is where we're focused now. We've got an incredibly robust soil geochemical anomaly, 4 square kilometers. Coincident with the anomaly, we've got some very, very positive geophysics. We released results of some drilling that we did earlier this year, hole number 77. It's difficult to get excited about something that's 0.4% nickel over 2 meters, but this 0.4% nickel is in a rock that only has 3% sulfide. So it has a very high nickel tenor. It has a nickel tenor comparable to the historic Rottenstone deposit. So I think this is a very, very good clue that we are getting very, very close to finding something very Rottenstone-like. The soil geochemistry, I'm going to try and do this quickly. The blue that you see here, we're mapping the 90th percentile of nickel in soils. We get up to 743 parts per million nickel in soils. We have individual samples, soil samples that we're running over a gram of platinum, palladium plus gold in this area that's 2 kilometers south of the historic Rottenstone mine. You can see that there is nickel in soils directly over top of our discovery, the Bay Island Trend. The middle slide is chrome in soils. Chrome is a significant pathfinder element for ultramafic rock, as is magnesium. We can stack magnesium, chrome, cobalt, platinum, palladium, all individually, and they just stack up beautifully in this area 2 kilometers south of the Rottenstone mine. So this is where we're focusing our attention going forward. Coincident with soil, we have a wonderful Bouguer gravity anomaly. We've inverted some of this data. This hole number 77, for instance, is directly associated with an area of increased density. We have multiple off-hole borehole anomalies in this area. And so we really do feel that we're getting close to something significant. Quickly, the magmatic nickel sulfide textures. The top left picture, that is massive sulfide that I picked up out of the historic ore dump. That runs 8% nickel. The second bottom slide is massive sulfides from the Bay Island Trend. That's running 2% nickel. Photograph on the top right, this net textured matrix style of mineralization, roughly, I'd say, 30% sulfide. That has a nickel grade of 4%. Slide in the middle, the matrix style of the matrix texture there from the Bay Island Trend, that runs about 1% nickel. So they're very, very comparable rocks in everything but the nickel grade. And this is where we utilize nickel tenors to focus in on where we think we need to be looking next. And final slide here, this image on the left, what we're trying to indicate here is our hole number 77 hit this apophyses of, if you will, meters of orthoperoxenite, 3% sulfide. There was an individual 1 meter sample in that interval that ran 0.9% nickel. That's an awful lot of nickel for only 3% sulfide. So when we reflecting back, and I've been at this project since 1998, 1999, and you look at some of the intervals that we intersected north of the historic Rottenstone mine, you get this, 0.5 meter to 1 meter of ultramafic rock, and what does this mean? But then when you do the nickel tenor calculations, it's telling you, well, it's pretty high. And looking back on this now, I think that was a reflection of the historic Rottenstone deposit itself occurring 100 meters to the south. So if we use that analogy with our hole number 77, I think this interval of 2 meters of 0.4% nickel is potentially leading us to something like Rottenstone. This photograph, we're going to be looking for a much larger, the size and the grade to be determined, but I do really believe that we are now in the ballpark. I'll leave it there and I might just put it slide illustrating Doug is here with me. Doug is the president and CFO. And any questions?
Ian, you sure did great time with that. So we got about 5 minutes left. Are there any questions from the audience? All right. Well, we do have one. Hold on one second.
You have a 53 million warrant. So that's the price, how much and how long?
Yes, yeah. Let me back up to that slide. Capital structure. Yeah, so with the initial IPO and subsequent financings, we've post the IPO, we've raised over $20 million. A lot of warrants attached to the various financing. Overall strike price of the warrants is roughly 20 cents. Hope to have sort of an expediter clause on that, but we've got pretty exercise those things. So we've roughly got about $11 million of capital tied up, potential capital tied up in the. Yes.
Hold on one second.
Can you give us some idea of how you're going to prioritize all these projects?
That's a very, very good question, and it's a question we get asked a lot. And Doug and I mean, Doug answers this question a little bit better than I do. It's almost like trying to choose your favorite child. The Rottenstone project has tremendous potential with respect to grade. I think there's a quicker runway to a resource at Goshager Lake. It is difficult to finance both. Answer your question directly, our short-term thinking here is we're going to focus on the Goshager Lake project here over the next.
You say within 12 months. Is there any thoughts of trying to get to break even in the next 5-10 years, or how do you approach this?
Well, we feel that we're on the runway to defining a resource. The drilling that we did last year covered 230 meters of strike. There's 400 meters of vertical. We have opened this deposit up in all directions. Have a pretty good handle on the host intrusive. We know it's mineralized. So we are in a position where we could drill this thing as we continue to look for the massive sulfides, which we think are at depth. We're also building tons, and because we're hitting all of this higher grade mineralization, we're going to improve the grade. But it goes without saying that's going to require capital, and market cap where we are right now, we have to be very, very careful about just how much we bite off at this moment. So it's a challenge going forward.
It's obviously a difficult market for being a junior at early stage, but you're in a unique position with your assets. And I'm just curious, have you in recent months or quarters or the last couple of years noticed more attention given to you from strategics or significant institutions, at least sniffing around? And expressing interest in maybe taking a bigger position because you have a large retail audience, which is great. But I would think, given that your composition of potential minerals is suddenly a very hot subject in a lot of places.
Yes, yes, and sort of a two-part answer to that. When we, we're not going to be the miners. The farm team here. Our job is to do the exploration. I think we're doing it in a very, very methodical approach. I think we're delivering goods. Have reached out to the Vales, the Glencores, the Rio Tintos. We've had discussions. And the second part of the question is more recently, people are coming to us. That's encouraging. So, I mean, it's our job to get the story out there. But now that people are actually approaching us, and with all sort of mid tiers to big guys to offtake companies, they're seeking us out, which is good. And we've had a nice turn in the nickel price bottomed out in January. It fell off the cliff the fall of 2023.
From strategics, what about?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned Crescat is still in there. They're rock solid with us. They've been there since day one. That's another avenue that we've got to pursue. We tend to like a little bit higher market caps, but.
Alrighty, Ian, we are at the end of our time here. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Today, I'm going to talk about Intrepid Metals. Intrepid Metals is a relatively new company that came to the market just in May of 2022. And over the last 18 months, we've operated a little bit more like a private company in many ways, as we set out to build out an Arizona portfolio of all drill-ready projects that we think have the ability to create significant shareholder capital. We've tried to stay focused on essential metals such as copper, silver, and zinc. Our advanced stage Corral Copper project is the one project that I'll likely speak on the most, but we have two other real exciting opportunities as well. And certainly I think we've been able to establish a great team led by my chairman, Mark Morabito, and we've rounded it out with some great technical advisors to move this company forward. So we started the year off of 2024 with a bang. We're one of the few companies that's been able to raise some significant capital in the more difficult market environments. We raised $6.6 million in January, and from there, we started drilling in February. So we're off to the races. We've released some fantastic results, and we certainly have a lot more to come. Based on the early nature, we have a low market cap of only 30 million. We only have 45 million shares outstanding. So we have tremendous growth from here on. So, I'm very bullish on the state of Arizona for many reasons. And, I think this slide, I just like to illustrate a couple of companies that I hold in high regard. Certainly Faraday Copper, they've been a great success story. Just today, they announced a $20 million bought deal. Arizona Sonoran, they've been doing a fantastic job with their assets, both a couple of notches above where we are. However, with our Corral Copper project, which we only just completed the acquisition of essentially last fall, I think we have the ability to advance the Corral Copper project much further up that development curve in many reasons, in quick fashion. So I touched on, we have three exciting opportunities. Our Corral Copper project, as you can see here in Cochise County, our Tombstone South project, just south of the town of Tombstone, also in Cochise County. And then we have our Mesa Well project up here in Graham County. So, we really like Cochise County. We're a little biased. We think it's one of the best counties to be in within the state of Arizona for many different reasons. It has a long history of resource development. The recently approved Gunnison mine, which was approved in 2018, and they were the first copper mine to get a new mine permit in the state of Arizona in over a decade, and they did it in 2.5 years. So that just goes to show that county itself, you can get permits or mine projects approved, and you had that supportive stakeholder base. It's important to point out Cochise County, while it's somewhat remote, it has all of the key infrastructure you need. It has rail, it has power. There's not a lot of national forest in the areas. We tried to make sure that we stayed away from the national forest as we're building out our assets. So it's really a great county to be in for many, many different reasons. So I touched on the state of Arizona. I'm sure many people know over 70% of all of the copper produced in the U.S. come out of the state of Arizona. When I look at the state of Arizona, and certainly our projects in particular, what I really like is more of our investment dollars go straight into the ground. We don't need to build seasonal roads. We can drive to all of our drill sites, so we don't need to, fly around drill rigs or crews in helicopters. So there's no real logistical cost to us moving forward with our exploration efforts. So Corral Copper, this is where I really want to speak on. Our Corral Copper project, we called it Corral Copper because we had to corral a whole bunch of fragmented land ownership. The area itself certainly has a long history of mining and exploration. However, it was that fragmented land ownership that prohibited companies from being able to look at this from really a district scale opportunity. So while other companies have tried to consolidate this district or this area, we've been successful where many others have failed. I'm going to talk a lot about a 3-kilometer trend of known mineralization that was previously held by various parties that we've been able to piece back together. And that 3-kilometer trend is less than 15% of our entire property. And that's where the source of this 3-kilometer trend is yet to be discovered. So we think there's a lot of kind of porphyry potential within this district. So I touched on, we had to consolidate or corral a lot of the fragmented land ownership, and we now have 9,600 acres of mineral rights, as well as 1,800 acres of patented mining claims and additional surface rights. So I'm just going to refer to that as our private lands. It's our backyard. There has been a lot of historical production throughout the district, as you can see. 49 million pounds of copper with grades up to 1.57, also 5 million ounces of silver, certainly some gold within the district as well. But it was really all the fragmented land ownership that has, prohibited this area or this project in particular from being more advanced. It's a geological analog to the Bisbee district, or where the Copper Queen mine was located, that was operated by Phelps Dodge and Freeport up until the 80s. And all of the money was made in the shallow, high-grade mineralization, and then they found the porphyry, and that operated the mine for another 50 plus years. So it's really important to keep that context. So as I touched on, we had to corral a lot of that fragmented land ownership, and we're able to pull together, just this 3 kilometer trend that once again is less than 15% of our entire property. And within that 3 kilometer trend, we had a lot of historical drill data. There was no drill core. Some of the previous fragmented landowners, they ended up in court suing one another. It was a tough situation. And unfortunately, all of the drill core was destroyed. However, we do have the historical drill logs and we have the historical assay data. So what that gives us is that strategic advantage of knowing where to point the drill rig to try to validate a lot of the historical data that we have. Sporadic exploration came from some people were only looking for gold, maybe up in the Holiday Zone. Some people were only looking for copper, maybe in the Ringo Zone. So it's yet to be looked at from this more systematic approach. But what we do know is based on the historical data, there's a robust mineralized trend of this 3 kilometer trend of the Holiday, Earp, and Ringo that all fall within our private lands. So what's private lands really mean? I'll give you an example. From a permitting standpoint, Holiday and Earp fall within our patented mining claims, and we just needed to notify the county. It's kind of like our backyard. We can drill where we need or where we want to and really advance this project forward. And once again, mineralization remains open in all directions. So what really stands out about this project and how I think we're a little bit different is the shallow nature and the high grade of the mineralization that we're seeing. Once again, we've got this 3 kilometer trend, as you can see, all within our private lands, less than 15% of our entire property, but how shallow this mineralization is. So what's shallow mean? It means 2 things. One, that low cost quick mine start opportunity within the private lands, and certainly low cost of drilling. So when it comes to drilling, we've still in the process of drilling our maiden drill program within this area. And as you can see, we've had tremendous success. 193 meters of 0.68% copper and 0.33 grams per ton gold. So if we look at it from a copper equivalency standpoint, that's 193 meters of 0.83% copper equivalency, starting from 27 meters down. So very, very shallow. 105 meters within it of 1.17% copper and 0.55 grams per ton gold, or 1.42% copper equivalency. So really high grade, very, very shallow. That was in hole 11 down here in the Ringo Zone, even up here in the Holiday Zone. Again, we had 124 meters of 0.52% copper, as well as 0.35 grams per ton gold. So 0.73% copper equivalency, starting at 10 meters. Very, very shallow. Certainly another highlight is from hole 16, also further down here in the Ringo Zone, another almost 200 meters of 0.56% copper, or 0.68% copper equivalency. And within that zone, another 72 meters of 1.28% copper. So these drill results really stand out compared to many others for a lot of reasons. One is the high grade nature, large, good mining widths, as well as just so shallow. So this is a real exciting opportunity that we're pleased to bring to the market. And we're only now just starting to talk about this story. Here you can see once again the Ringo Zone. The Ringo Zone's where we're, focused on a lot of our drilling. And it's at the southern part of that 3 kilometer trend. And just the Ringo Zone alone measures, 900 meters by 800 meters. What we've really discovered based on this drill program is the most favorable, mineralization is being found in the Abrigo limestone unit. So it's the shallow CRD, carbonate replacement style mineralization. And that's what's carrying a lot of this high grade mineralization. As you can see here, from holes 11, 12, and 13, we've been able to pull together a section. And you can see, once again, how a lot of this very high-grade mineralization is really stitching together, and it's mineralized from near surface. So this is a real exciting new opportunity that we're only now just starting to tell people about. So Corral Copper is certainly our flagship project, and I think we had tremendous growth within it. However, our Tombstone South project is another real exciting opportunity. And if you recall from the earlier slide, we're only about 35 kilometers from our Corral Copper project to our Tombstone South project. But this project is geologically a little bit different. The geological signatures here we're seeing more similar to the Taylor deposit or the Hermosa deposit that was bought by South 32 back in 2018 for $1.3 billion. So that was what really attracted us to this project initially, was the geological similarities to the Taylor deposit, where you've had previous drilling within the property that intersected some pretty interesting, silver grades as well as silver, lead, zinc. BHP drilled a hole in the center of the property back in 1995. And as we understand, they were looking for another porphyry type of target, because there is a porphyry that is located to the northwest of the property. And, while that porphyry to the northwest is of uneconomic grade at this stage, the importance in this story of it being the heat source is really, really important. So as you can see here, these are just some of the similarities between the Taylor/Hermosa deposit and our Tombstone deposit, where we have all of the right host rocks. We certainly have that spatial relationship to the porphyry. And then most importantly is those limestone units at depth. And the Taylor deposit itself wasn't really discovered until people drilled a little bit deeper and get into that limestone unit below. So this is a conceptual cross-section that I hope explains it fairly well. We have some of the previous drilling in the upper strata. We have the porphyry that's off to the northwest that provides that heat source. And then we have that major fault that comes towards our project, which provides a conduit for fluid flows, where a lot of the high-grade mineralization can get essentially trapped between these two rock types and replaced within this limestone unit itself. So the first thing we did when we acquired this project was we did a large dipole IP survey. And while all geophysics can identify a drill target of some sort, what really stood out to us was the location and the strength of this chargeability anomaly that you see in that upper part of the limestone units. So again, you can see how some of this, shallower drilling had never tested the depths, but still had some great grade located within these veins or fissures. So it was the source of all of this mineralization that we've been focused on. And having this strong chargeability anomaly located adjacent to a fault and in that upper strata is one that has us very, very excited. So this could be a game changer for the company. Certainly while we have our Corral Copper project, which is a fantastic project in its own right, it's got tremendous growth potential. We drill what we expect to hit at Tombstone South. It can certainly be a game changer, certainly for the company, and create significant shareholder value from where we are today. Last but certainly not least is our Mesa Well project. If you recall, it's a little further north. This one is in Graham County. And, this project is really surrounded by giants, and it is very much a high hypogene copper type of laramide project that we'd be looking at within this area. So as you can see, this is our Mesa Well project located here, and it is surrounded by giants. All of the major mining companies operate in here. BHP, certainly Rio, Freeport, all of the majors operate in this area, and Copper Creek is the Faraday Copper project that I touched on earlier, and they were successful in just announcing just today, once again, a $20 million bought financing. We're only about 35 kilometers from their location. So the Mesa Well project we acquired from Bronco Creek, who are great project generators, and they've held this project for a number of years. Vale had some property to the south. They did some drilling back in 2009, and the mineralization and the alteration intensity was increasing as they were drilling towards the north. So while this is an earlier stage project and we'd likely aim to do some additional geophysics on this project, again, this project has significant upside that can create significant value from just one drill hole. I don't foresee ourselves spending a lot of time on Mesa Well in 2024. This is very much a 2025 project because we're going to focus our near-term efforts on Corral Copper as well as Tombstone South. So being a new company, we rely heavily on our advisory team. We've tried to keep the management team fairly lean just to enable us to kind of, tweak the dial with some of our expenditures on a monthly burn standpoint. But I touched on my chairman earlier, Mark Morabito. It's important to point out, Mark led Excelsior Mining, who was the company for Gunnison that got that mine project or that mine approval in 2.5 years. So he's proved that you can get a mine built in Cochise County. He has a significant track record in creating shareholder value. I've had the pleasure of working with Mark on a couple of other opportunities, and I think we make a great team to be able to move this project forward. Certainly where the rubber meets the road often is our technical advisory teams, and we have Chris Oshman, who's based in Arizona. Dan McNeil and Alan Wainwright are both located here in Vancouver, Canada, where our head office is. And then we certainly got a great board of directors and some additional technical advisors like Tony Taylor. He's located in Nevada, brilliant geologist in his own right. And then we have Rebecca Sawyer, who importantly led the permitting exercise in Cochise County for the Gunnison project. And then certainly, once again, Colleen Roach, mine engineer, has got a tremendous amount of experience in the state of Arizona in our own right. So I'll probably keep it there, just kind of based on the time. But once again, we've just tried to focus on building out all drill-ready assets that can create significant shareholder value, and I think we've done just that. Our Corral Copper project is such a unique opportunity. Our Tombstone South project has tremendous potential, much as our Mesa Well project. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for their time, and I'd happy to take any questions at any point.